perhaps my intercession will be helpful to him on the day of resurrection so that he may be put in a shallow fire reaching only up to his ankles. His brain will boil from it. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 225, narrated Yazid, as above, Hadith 224, using the words, will make his brain boil. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 226, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, that he heard Allah's apostle saying, when the people of Quraysh did not believe me, i.e. the story of my night journey, I stood up in Al-Hijjah and Allah displayed Jerusalem in front of me and I began describing it to them while I was looking at it. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 227, narrated Abbas bin Malik, Malik bin Sasar said that Allah's apostle described to them his night journey saying, while I was lying in Al-Hatim or Al-Hijjah, suddenly someone came to me and cut my body open from here to here. I asked Al-Jarad who was by my side, what does he mean? He said, it means from his throat to his pubic area, or said, from the top of the chest. The Prophet further said, he then took out my heart. Then a gold tray of belief was brought to me and my heart was washed and was filled with belief, and then returned to its original place. Then a white animal which was smaller than a mule and bigger than a donkey was brought to me. On this Al-Jarad asked, was it the Burak, O Abu Hamza? I, i.e. Anas, replied in the affirmative. The Prophet said, the animal's step was so wide that it reached the farthest point within the reach of the animal's sight. I was carried on it, and Gabriel set out with me till we reached the nearest heaven. When he asked for the gate to be opened, it was asked, who is it? Gabriel answered, Gabriel. It was asked, who is accompanying you? Gabriel replied, Muhammad. It was asked, has Muhammad been called? Gabriel replied in the affirmative. Then it was said, he is welcomed. What an excellent visit his is. The gate was opened, and when I went over the first heaven, I saw Adam there. Gabriel said, to me, this is your father, Adam, pay him your greetings. So I greeted him and he returned the greeting to me and said, you are welcomed, O pious son and pious prophet. Then Gabriel ascended with me till we reached the second heaven. Gabriel asked for the gate to be opened. It was asked, who is it? Gabriel answered, Gabriel. It was asked, who is accompanying you? Gabriel replied, Muhammad. It was asked, has he been called? Gabriel answered in the affirmative. Then it was said, he is welcomed. What an excellent visit his is. The gate was opened. When I went over the second heaven, there I saw Yahya, i.e. John, and Isa, i.e. Jesus, who were cousins of each other. Gabriel said, to me, these are John and Jesus, pay them your greetings. So I greeted them and both of them returned my greetings to me and said, you are welcomed, O pious brother and pious prophet. Then Gabriel ascended with me to the third heaven and asked for its gate to be opened. It was asked, who is it? Gabriel replied, Gabriel. It was asked, who is accompanying you? Gabriel replied, Muhammad. It was asked, has he been called? Gabriel replied in the affirmative. Then it was said, he is welcomed, what an excellent visit his is. The gate was opened, and when I went over the third heaven there I saw Joseph. Gabriel said, to me, this is Joseph, pay him your greetings. So I greeted him and he returned the greeting to me and said, you are welcomed, O pious brother and pious prophet. Then Gabriel ascended with me to the fourth heaven and asked for its gate to be opened. It was asked, who is it? Gabriel replied, Gabriel. It was asked, who is accompanying you? Gabriel replied, Muhammad. It was asked, has he been called? Gabriel replied in the affirmative. Then it was said, he is welcomed, what an excellent visit his is. The gate was opened, and when I went over the fourth heaven, there I saw Idris. Gabriel said, to me, this is Idris, pay him your greetings. So I greeted him and he returned the greeting to me and said, you are welcomed, O pious brother and pious prophet. Then Gabriel ascended with me to the fifth heaven and asked for its gate to be opened. It was asked, who is it? Gabriel replied, Gabriel. It was asked, who is accompanying you? Gabriel replied, Muhammad. It was asked, has he been called? Gabriel replied in the affirmative. Then it was said, he is welcomed, what an excellent visit his is. So when I went over the fifth heaven, there I saw Harun, i.e. Aaron. Gabriel said to me, "This is Aaron, pay him your greetings." I greeted him and he returned the greeting to me and said, "You are welcomed, O pious brother and pious prophet." Then Gabriel ascended with me to the sixth heaven and asked for its gate to be opened. It was asked, "Who is it?" Gabriel replied, "Gabriel." It was asked, "Who is accompanying you?" Gabriel replied, "Muhammad." It was asked, "Has he been called?" Gabriel replied in the affirmative. It was said, "He is welcomed. What an excellent visit his is." When I went over the sixth heaven, there I saw Moses. Gabriel said to me, "This is Moses, pay him your greeting." So I greeted him and he returned the greetings to me and said, "You are welcomed, O pious brother and pious prophet." When I left him, i.e. Moses, he wept. Someone asked him, "What makes you weep?" Moses said, "I weep because after me there has been sent, as prophet, a young man whose followers will enter paradise in greater numbers than my followers." Then Gabriel ascended with me to the seventh heaven and asked for its gate to be opened. It was asked, "Who is it?" Gabriel replied, "Gabriel." It was asked, "Who is accompanying you?" Gabriel replied, "Muhammad." It was asked, "Has he been called?" Gabriel replied in the affirmative. Then it was said, "He is welcomed. What an excellent visit his is." So when I went over the seventh heaven, there I saw Abraham. Gabriel said to me, "This is your father, pay your greetings to him." So I greeted him and he returned the greetings to me and said, "You are welcomed, O pious son and pious prophet." Then I was made to ascend to Sidrat-ul Muntaha, i.e. the lote tree of the utmost boundary. Behold, its fruits were like the jars of Hajar, i.e. a place near Medina, and its leaves were as big as the ears of elephants. Gabriel said, "This is the lote tree of the utmost boundary. Behold, there ran 4 rivers, 2 were hidden and 2 were visible." I asked, "What are these 2 kinds of rivers, O Gabriel?" He replied, "As for the hidden rivers, they are 2 rivers in paradise, and the visible rivers are the Nile and the Euphrates." Then Al-Bayt-ul-Ma'mur, i.e. the sacred house, was shown to me, and a container full of wine and another full of milk and a third full of honey were brought to me. I took the milk. Gabriel remarked, "This is the Islamic religion which you and your followers are following." Then the prayers were enjoined on me, they were 50 prayers a day. When I returned, I passed by Moses, who asked me, "What have you been ordered to do?" I replied, "I have been ordered to offer 50 prayers a day." Moses said, "Your followers cannot bear 50 prayers a day, and by Allah, I have tested people before you, and I have tried my level best with Bani Israel, in vain. Go back to your Lord and ask for reduction to lessen your followers' burden." So I went back, and Allah reduced 10 prayers for me. Then again I came to Moses, but he repeated the same as he had said before. Then again I went back to Allah and he reduced 10 more prayers. When I came back to Moses he said the same. I went back to Allah and he ordered me to observe 10 prayers a day. When I came back to Moses, he repeated the same advice, so I went back to Allah and was ordered to observe 5 prayers a day. When I came back to Moses, he said, "What have you been ordered?" I replied, "I have been ordered to observe 5 prayers a day." He said, "Your followers cannot bear 5 prayers a day, and no doubt, I have gotten experience of the people before you, and I have tried my level best with Bani Israel, so go back to your Lord and ask for reduction to lessen your followers' burden." I said, "I have requested so much of my Lord that I feel ashamed, but I am satisfied now and surrender to Allah's order." When I left, I heard a voice saying, "I have passed my order and have lessened the burden of my worshippers." Volume 5, Book 58, Number 228, narrated Ibn Abbas, regarding the statement of Allah, "And we granted the vision, ascension to the heavens, which we made you see, as an actual eyewitness, was only made as a trial for the people." 1760, Ibn Abbas added, "The sights which Allah's apostle was shown on the night journey when he was taken to Bayt-ul Maqdis, i.e. Jerusalem, were actual sights, not dreams. And the cursed tree, mentioned in the Quran, is the tree of Zaqqum itself." Volume 5, Book 58, Number 229, narrated Abdullah bin Ka'b, who was Kab's guide when Ka'b turned blind. I heard Ka'b bin Malik narrating, when he remained behind, i.e. did not join, the Prophet in the Ghazwa of Tabuk. Ibn Bukhayr, in his narration stated that Ka'b said, I witnessed the Al-Aqaba pledge of allegiance at night with the Prophet when we jointly agreed to support Islam with all our efforts. I would not like to have attended the Bad battle instead of that Aqaba pledge, although Bad is more well known than it, amongst the people. Volume 5, Book 58, number 230, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, I was present with my two maternal uncles at Al-Aqaba, where the pledge of allegiance was given. Ibn Uyayna said, one of the two was Al-Bara bin Marur. Volume 5, Book 58, number 231, narrated Jabir, my father, my two maternal uncles and I were among those who took part in the Aqaba pledge. Volume 5, Book 58, number 232, narrated Ubadah bin As-Samit, who had taken part in the Battle of Bad with Allah's Apostle and had been amongst his companions on the night of Al-Aqaba pledge. Allah's Apostle, surrounded by a group of his companions, said, Come along and give me the pledge of allegiance that you will not worship anything besides Allah, will not steal, will not commit illegal sexual intercourse, will not kill your children, will not utter slander invented by yourself, and will not disobey me if I order you to do something good. Whoever among you will respect and fulfill this pledge will be rewarded by Allah. And if one of you commits any of these sins and is punished in this world, then that will be his expiation for it, and if one of you commits any of these sins and Allah screens his sin, then his matter will rest with Allah. If He will punish him, and if He will excuse him. So I gave the pledge of allegiance to him for these conditions. Volume 5, Book 58, number 233, narrated Ubadah bin As-Samit, I was one of the Naqibs who gave the Aqaba pledge of allegiance to Allah's Apostle. We gave the pledge of allegiance to him that we would not worship anything other than Allah, would not steal, would not commit illegal sexual intercourse, would not kill a person whose killing Allah has made illegal except rightfully, would not rob each other, and we would not be promised paradise. If we did the above sins, then if we committed one of the above sins, Allah will give His judgment concerning it. Volume 5, Book 58, number 234, narrated Aisha, the Prophet engaged me when I was a girl of 6 years. We went to Medina and stayed at the home of Bani al-Harith bin Khazraj. Then I got ill and my hair fell down. Later on my hair grew again, and my mother, Ruman, came to me while I was playing in a swing with some of my girlfriends. She called me and I went to her, not knowing what she wanted to do to me. She caught me by the hand and made me stand at the door of the house. I was breathless then, and when my breathing became all right, she took some water and rubbed my face and head with it. Then she took me into the house. There in the house I saw some Ansari women who said, best wishes and Allah's blessing and a good luck. Then she entrusted me to them and they prepared me for the marriage. Unexpectedly Allah's Apostle came to me in the forenoon and my mother handed me over to him, and at that time I was a girl of 9 years of age. Volume 5, Book 58, number 235, narrated Aisha, that the Prophet said to her, You have been shown to me twice in my dream. I saw you pictured on a piece of silk and someone said to me, This is your wife. When I uncovered the picture, I saw that it was yours. I said, If this is from Allah, it will be done. Volume 5, Book 58, number 236, narrated Hisham's father, Khadijah died 3 years before the Prophet departed to Medina. He stayed there for 2 years or so and then he married Aisha when she was a girl of 6 years of age, and he consumed that marriage when she was 9 years old. Volume 5, Book 58, number 237, narrated Abu Wa'il, we visited Kababa who said, We migrated with the Prophet for Allah's sake, so our reward became due and sure with Allah. Some of us passed away without taking anything of their rewards in this world, and one of them was Mus'ab bin Umar who was martyred on the day of the battle of Uhud leaving a striped woolen cloak. When we covered his head with it, his feet became naked, and when covered his feet, his head became naked. So Allah's Apostle ordered us to cover his head and put some idkir, i.e. a special kind of grass, on his feet. On the other hand, some of us have had their fruits ripened in this world, and they are collecting them. Volume 5, Book 58, number 238, narrated Umar, I heard the Prophet saying, The reward of deeds depends on the intentions, so whoever emigrated for the worldly benefits or to marry a woman, his emigration was for that for which he emigrated, but whoever emigrated for the sake of Allah and his apostle, his emigration is for Allah and his apostle. Volume 5, Book 58, number 239, narrated Mujahid bin Jabir al-Makki. Abdullah bin Umar used to say, there is no more hijra, i.e. migration, after the conquest of Mecca. Volume 5, Book 58, number 240, narrated Atta bin Abi Robber, Ubayd bin Umar al-Laythi, and I visited Aisha and asked her about the hijra, i.e. migration, and she said, today there is no hijra, emigration. A believer used to run away with his religion to Allah and his apostle lest he should be put to trial because of his religion. Today Allah has made Islam triumphant, and today a believer can worship his Lord wherever he likes. But the deeds that are still rewardable, in place of emigration, are jihad and good intentions. See Hadith number 42 Volume 4. Volume 5, Book 58, number 241, narrated Aisha, Sa'd said, O Allah! You know that there is none against whom I am eager to fight more willingly for your cause than those people who disbelieved your apostle and drove him out of his city. O Allah! I think that you have ended the fight between us and them. Volume 5, Book 58, number 242, narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's apostle started receiving the divine inspiration at the age of 40. Then he stayed in Mecca for 13 years, receiving the divine revelation. Then he was ordered to migrate and he lived as an immigrant for 10 years and then died at the age of 63 years. Volume 5, Book 58, number 243, narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's apostle stayed in Mecca for 13 years, after receiving the first divine inspiration, and died at the age of 63. Volume 5, Book 58, number 244, narrated Abu Said al-Khudri, Allah's apostle sat on the pulpit and said, Allah has given one of his slaves the choice of receiving the splendor and luxury of the worldly life whatever he likes or to accept the good of the hereafter, which is with Allah. So he has chosen that good which is with Allah. On that Abu Bakr wept and said, Our fathers and mothers be sacrificed for you. We became astonished at this. The people said, Look at this old man. Allah's apostle talks about a slave of Allah to whom he has given the option to choose either the splendor of this worldly life or the good which is with him, while he says, Our fathers and mothers be sacrifice, I for you. But it was Allah's apostle who had been given option, and Abu Bakr knew it better than we. Allah's apostle added, No doubt, I am indebted to Abu Bakr more than to anybody else regarding both his companionship and his wealth. And if I had to take a Khalil from my followers, I would certainly have taken Abu Bakr, but the fraternity of Islam is sufficient. Let no door, i.e. kuka, of the mosque remain open, except the door of Abu Bakr. Volume 5, Book 58, number 245, narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, I never remembered my parents believing in any religion other than the true religion, i.e. Islam, and I don't remember a single day passing without our being visited by Allah's apostle in the morning and in the evening. When the Muslims were put to test, troubled by the pagans, Abu Bakr set out migrating to the land of Ethiopia, and when he reached Bark al-Ghamad, Ibn ad-Dagina, the chief of the tribe of Kara, met him and said, O Abu Bakr, where are you going? Abu Bakr replied, My people have turned me out of my country, so I want to wander on the earth and worship my Lord. Ibn ad-Dagina said, O Abu Bakr, a man like you should not leave his homeland, nor should he be driven out, because you help the destitute, earn their livings, and you keep good relations with your kith and kin, help the weak and poor, entertain guests generously, and help the calamity-stricken persons. Therefore I am your protector. Go back and worship your Lord in your town. So Abu Bakr returned and Ibn ad-Dagina accompanied him. In the evening Ibn ad-Dagina visited the nobles of Quraysh and said to them, A man like Abu Bakr should not leave his homeland, nor should he be driven out. Do you, i.e. Quraysh, drive out a man who helps the destitute, earns their living, keeps good relations with his kith and kin, helps the weak and poor, entertains guests generously and helps the calamity-stricken persons? So the people of Quraysh could not refuse Ibn ad-Dagina's protection, and they said to Ibn ad-Dagina, Let Abu Bakr worship his Lord in his house. He can pray and recite there whatever he likes, but he should not hurt us with it, and should not do it publicly, because we are afraid that he may affect our women and children. Ibn ad-Daghina told Abu Bakr of all that. Abu Bakr stayed in that state, worshipping his Lord in his house. He did not pray publicly, nor did he recite Quran outside his house. Then a thought occurred to Abu Bakr to build a mosque in front of his house, and there he used to pray and recite the Quran. The women and children of the pagans began to gather around him in great number. They used to wonder at him and look at him. Abu Bakr was a man who used to weep too much, and he could not help weeping on reciting the Quran. That situation scared the nobles of the pagans of Quraysh, so they sent for Ibn ad-Daghina. When he came to them, they said, "We accepted your protection of Abu Bakr on condition that he should worship his Lord in his house, but he has violated the conditions and he has built a mosque in front of his house where he prays and recites the Quran publicly. We are now afraid that he may affect our women and children unfavorably. So, prevent him from that. If he likes to confine the worship of his Lord to his house, he may do so, but if he insists on doing that openly, ask him to release you from your obligation to protect him, for we dislike to break our pact with you, but we deny Abu Bakr the right to announce his act publicly." Ibn ad-Daghina went to Abu Bakr and said, "O Abu Bakr, you know well what contract I have made on your behalf. Now, you are either to abide by it, or else release me from my obligation of protecting you, because I do not want the Arabs hear that my people have dishonored a contract I have made on behalf of another man." Abu Bakr replied, "I release you from your pact to protect me, and am pleased with the protection from Allah." At that time the Prophet was in Mecca, and he said to the Muslims, "In a dream I have been shown your migration place, a land of date palm trees, between two mountains, the two stony tracts." So, some people migrated to Medina, and most of those people who had previously migrated to the land of Ethiopia returned to Medina. Abu Bakr also prepared to leave for Medina, but Allah's apostle said to him, "Wait for a while, because I hope that I will be allowed to migrate also." Abu Bakr said, "Do you indeed expect this? Let my father be sacrificed for you." The Prophet said, "Yes." So Abu Bakr did not migrate for the sake of Allah's apostle in order to accompany him. He fed 2 she-camels he possessed with the leaves of a sama tree that fell on being struck by a stick for 4 months. One day, while we were sitting in Abu Bakr's house at noon, someone said to Abu Bakr, "This is Allah's apostle with his head covered coming at a time at which he never used to visit us before." Abu Bakr said, "May my parents be sacrificed for him. By Allah, he has not come at this hour except for a great necessity." So Allah's apostle came and asked permission to enter, and he was allowed to enter. When he entered, he said to Abu Bakr, "Tell everyone who is present with you to go away." Abu Bakr replied, "There are none but your family. May my father be sacrificed for you, O Allah's apostle." The Prophet said, "I have been given permission to migrate." Abu Bakr said, "Shall I accompany you? May my father be sacrificed for you, O Allah's apostle." Allah's apostle said, "Yes." Abu Bakr said, "O Allah's apostle, may my father be sacrificed for you, take one of these 2 she-camels of mine." Allah's apostle replied, "I will accept it, with payment." So we prepared the baggage quickly and put some journey food in a leather bag for them. Asma, Abu Bakr's daughter, cut a piece from her waist belt and tied the mouth of the leather bag with it, and for that reason she was named Dat-un Nitakain, i.e. the owner of 2 belts. Then Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr reached a cave on the mountain of Thor and stayed there for 3 nights. Abdullah bin Abi Bakr, who was intelligent and a sagacious youth, used to stay with them overnight. He used to leave them before daybreak so that in the morning he would be with Quraysh as if he had spent the night in Mecca. He would keep in mind any plot made against them, and when it became dark he would go and inform them of it. Amir bin Fuhaira, the freed slave of Abu Bakr, used to bring the milch sheep of his master, Abu Bakr, to them a little while after nightfall in order to rest the sheep there. So they always had fresh milk at night, the milk of their sheep, and the milk which they warmed by throwing heated stones in it. Amir bin Fuhaira would then call the herd away when it was still dark, before daybreak. He did the same in each of those 3 nights. Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr had hired a man from the tribe of Bani Ad-Dail from the family of Bani Abd bin Adi as an expert guide, and he was in alliance with the family of Al-As bin Wail as Sami, and he was on the religion of the infidels of Quraysh. The Prophet and Abu Bakr trusted him and gave him their 2 she-camels and took his promise to bring their 2 she-camels to the cave of the mountain of Thor in the morning after 3 nights later. And, when they set out, Amir bin Fuhaira and the guide went along with them, and the guide led them along the seashore. The nephew of Suraka bin Jusham said that his father informed him that he heard Suraka bin Jusham saying, "The messengers of the heathens of Quraysh came to us declaring that they had assigned for the persons why would kill or arrest Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr, a reward equal to their blood money." While I was sitting in one of the gatherings of my tribe, Bani Mudlij, a man from them came to us and stood up while we were sitting, and said, "O Suraka, no doubt, I have just seen some people far away on the seashore, and I think they are Muhammad and his companions." Suraka added, "I too realized that it must have been they. But I said, no, it is not they, but you have seen so-and-so, and so-and-so whom we saw set out." I stayed in the gathering for a while and then got up and left for my home, and ordered my slave girl to get my horse which was behind a hillock, and keep it ready for me. Then I took my spear and left by the back door of my house, dragging the lower end of the spear on the ground and keeping it low. Then I reached my horse, mounted it and made it gallop. When I approached them, i.e. Muhammad and Abu Bakr, my horse stumbled and I fell down from it. Then I stood up, got hold of my quiver and took out the divining arrows and drew lots as to whether I should harm them, i.e. the Prophet and Abu Bakr, or not, and the lot which I disliked came out. But I remounted my horse and let it gallop, giving no importance to the divining arrows. When I heard the recitation of the Quran by Allah's apostle, who did not look hither and thither while Abu Bakr was doing it often, suddenly the forelegs of my horse sank into the ground up to the knees, and I fell down from it. Then I rebuked it, and it got up but could hardly take out its forelegs from the ground, and when it stood up straight again, its forelegs caused dust to rise up in the sky like smoke. Then again I drew lots with the divining arrows, and the lot which I disliked came out. So I called upon them to feel secure. They stopped, and I remounted my horse and went to them. When I saw how I had been hampered from harming them, it came to my mind that the cause of Allah's apostle, i.e. Islam, will become victorious. So I said to him, "Your people have assigned a reward equal to the blood money for your head." Then I told them all the plans the people of Mecca had made concerning them. Then I offered them some journey food and goods, but they refused to take anything and did not ask for anything, but the Prophet said, "Do not tell others about us." Then I requested him to write for me a statement of security and peace. He ordered Amr bin Fuhaira, who wrote it for me on a parchment, and then Allah's apostle proceeded on his way. Narrated, Urwa bin Az Zubayr, Allah's apostle met Az Zubayr in a caravan of Muslim merchants who were returning from Sham. Az Zubayr provided Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr with white clothes to wear. When the Muslims of Medina heard the news of the departure of Allah's apostle from Mecca towards Medina, they started going to the Hara every morning. They would wait for him till the heat of the noon forced them to return. One day, after waiting for a long while, they returned home, and when they went into their houses, a Jew climbed up the roof of one of the forts of his people to look for something, and he saw Allah's apostle and his companions dressed in white clothes, emerging out of the desert mirage. The Jew could not help shouting at the top of his voice, "O you Arabs! Here is your great man whom you have been waiting for." So all the Muslims rushed to their arms and received Allah's apostle on the summit of Hara. The Prophet turned with them to the right and alighted at the quarters of Bani Amr bin Auf, and this was on Monday in the month of Rabi'ul Awwal. Abu Bakr stood up, receiving the people, while Allah's apostle sat down and kept silent. Some of the Ansar who came and had not seen Allah's apostle before, began greeting Abu Bakr, but when the sunshine fell on Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr came forward and shaded him with his sheet, only then the people came to know Allah's apostle. Allah's apostle stayed with Bani Amr bin Auf for 10 nights and established the mosque of Quba, which was founded on piety. Allah's apostle prayed in it and then mounted his she-camel and proceeded on, accompanied by the people till his she-camel knelt down at the place of the mosque of Allah's apostle at Medina. Some Muslims used to pray there in those days, and that place was a yard for drying dates belonging to Suhail and Sal, the orphan boys who were under the guardianship of Asad bin Zurara. When his she-camel knelt down, Allah's apostle said, "This place, Allah willing, will be our abiding place." Allah's apostle then called the 2 boys and told them to suggest a price for that yard so that he might take it as a mosque. The two boys said, "No, but we will give it as a gift, O Allah's Apostle." Allah's Apostle then built a mosque there. The Prophet himself started carrying unburnt bricks for its building, and while doing so, he was saying, "This load is better than the load of Kaaba, for it is more pious in the sight of Allah, and purer and better rewardable." He was also saying, "O Allah, the actual reward is the reward in the hereafter, so bestow your mercy on the Ansar and the emigrants." Thus the Prophet recited, by way of proverb, the poem of some Muslim poet whose name is unknown to me. Ibn Shibab said, in the Hadiths it does not occur that Allah's Apostle recited a complete poetic verse other than this one. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 246, narrated Asma, I prepared the journey food for the Prophet and Abu Bakr when they wanted to migrate to Medina. I said to my father, Abu Bakr, I do not have anything to tie the container of the journey food with except my waist belt. He said, divide it lengthwise into two. I did so, and for this reason I was named Dat-un Nitakain, i.e. the owner of two belts. Ibn Abbas said, Asma, Dat-un Nitak. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 247, narrated Al-Bara, when the Prophet migrated to Medina, Suraka bin Malik bin Jusham pursued him. The Prophet invoked evil on him, therefore the forelegs of his horse sank into the ground. Suraka said to the Prophet, invoke Allah to rescue me, and I will not harm you. The Prophet invoked Allah for him. Then Allah's Apostle felt thirsty and he passed by a shepherd. Abu Bakr said, I took a bowl and milked a little milk in it and brought it to the Prophet and he drank till I was pleased. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 248, narrated Asma, that she conceived Abdullah bin Az Zubayr. She added, I migrated to Medina while I was at full term of pregnancy and alighted at Quba where I gave birth to him. Then I brought him to the Prophet and put him in his lap. The Prophet asked for a date, chewed it, and put some of its juice in the child's mouth. So, the first thing that entered the child's stomach was the saliva of Allah's Apostle. Then the Prophet rubbed the child's palate with a date and invoked for Allah's blessings on him, and he was the first child born amongst the emigrants in the Islamic land, i.e. Medina. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 249, narrated Aisha, the first child who was born in the Islamic land, i.e. Medina, amongst the emigrants, was Abdullah bin Az Zubayr. They brought him to the Prophet. The Prophet took a date, and after chewing it, put its juice in his mouth. So the first thing that went into the child's stomach was the saliva of the Prophet. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 250, narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's Apostle arrived at Medina with Abu Bakr, riding behind him on the same camel. Abu Bakr was an elderly man known to the people, while Allah's Apostle was a youth that was unknown. Thus, if a man met Abu Bakr, he would say, O Abu Bakr, who is this man in front of you? Abu Bakr would say, this man shows me the way. One would think that Abu Bakr meant the road, while in fact, Abu Bakr meant the way of virtue and good. Then Abu Bakr looked behind and saw a horse rider pursuing them. He said, O Allah's Apostle, this is a horse rider pursuing us. The Prophet looked behind and said, O Allah, cause him to fall down. So the horse threw him down and got up neighing. After that the rider, Suraka, said, O Allah's Prophet, order me whatever you want. The Prophet said, stay where you are and do not allow anybody to reach us. So, in the first part of the day Suraka was an enemy of Allah's Prophet, and in the last part of it, he was a protector. Then Allah's Apostle alighted by the side of the Al-Hara and sent a message to the Ansar, and they came to Allah's Prophet and Abu Bakr, and having greeted them, they said, ride your she-camels, safe and obeyed. Allah's Apostle and Abu Bakr rode, and the Ansar, carrying their arms, surrounded them. The news that Allah's Prophet had come circulated in Medina. The people came out and were eagerly looking and saying, Allah's Prophet has come. Allah's Prophet has come. So the Prophet went on till he alighted near the house of Abu Ayyub. While the Prophet was speaking with the family members of Abu Ayyub, Abdullah bin Salam heard the news of his arrival while he himself was picking the dates for his family from his family garden. He hurried to the Prophet carrying the dates which he had collected for his family from the garden. He listened to Allah's Prophet and then went home. Then Allah's Prophet said, which is the nearest of the houses of our kith and kin? Abu Ayyub replied, mine, O Allah's Prophet. This is my house and this is my gate. The Prophet said, Go and prepare a place for our midday rest. Abu Ayyub said, Get up, both of you, with Allah's blessings. So when Allah's Prophet went into the house, Abdullah bin Salam came and said, I testify that you, Muhammad, apostle of Allah, and that you have come with the truth. The Jews know well that I am their chief and the son of their chief and the most learned amongst them and the son of the most learned amongst them. So send for them, i.e. Jews, and ask them about me before they know that I have embraced Islam, for if they know that they will say about me things which are not correct. So Allah's apostle sent for them, and they came and entered. Allah's apostle said to them, O, the group of Jews! Woe to you, be afraid of Allah. By Allah except whom none has the right to be worshipped, you people know for certain, that I am apostle of Allah and that I have come to you with the truth, so embrace Islam. The Jews replied, We do not know this. So they said this to the Prophet and he repeated it thrice. Then he said, What sort of a man is Abdullah bin Salam amongst you? They said, He is our chief and the son of our chief and the most learned man, and the son of the most learned amongst us. He said, What would you think if he should embrace Islam? They said, Allah forbid. He cannot embrace Islam. He said, What would you think if he should embrace Islam? They said, Allah forbid. He cannot embrace Islam. He said, What would you think if he should embrace Islam? They said, Allah forbid. He cannot embrace Islam. He said, O Ibn Salam, come out to them. He came out and said, O, the group of Jews! Ain't ye afraid of Allah except whom none has the right to be worshipped? You know for certain that he is apostle of Allah and that he has brought a true religion. They said, You tell a lie. On that Allah's apostle turned them out. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 251, narrated Ibn Umar bin al-Khattab fixed a grant of 4,000 dirhams for every early emigrant, i.e. muhajir, and fixed a grant of 3,500 dirhams only for Ibn Umar. Somebody said to Umar, Ibn Umar is also one of the early emigrants, why do you give him less than 4,000? Umar replied, His parents took him with them when they migrated, so he was not like the one who had migrated by himself. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 252, narrated Kabab, we migrated with Allah's Apostle, see Hadith number 253 below. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 253, narrated Kabab, we migrated with Allah's Apostle seeking Allah's countenance, so our rewards became due and sure with Allah. Some of us passed away without eating anything of their rewards in this world. One of these was Mus'ab bin Umar who was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud. We did not find anything to shroud his body with except a striped cloak. When we covered his head with it, his feet remained uncovered, and when we covered his feet with it, his head remained uncovered. So Allah's Apostle ordered us to cover his head with it and put some idkir, i.e. a kind of grass, over his feet. And there are some amongst us whose fruits have ripened and they are collecting them, i.e. they have received their rewards in this world. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 254, narrated Abu Burda bin Abi Musa al-Ash'ari, Abdullah bin Umar said to me, Do you know what my father said to your father once? I said, No. He said, My father said to your father, O Abu Musa, will it please you that we will be rewarded for our conversion to Islam with Allah's Apostle and our migration with him, and our jihad with him and all our good deeds which we did with him, and that all the deeds we did after his death will be disregarded whether good or bad? Your father, i.e. Abu Musa, said, No, by Allah, we took part in jihad after Allah's Apostle, prayed and did plenty of good deeds, and many people have embraced Islam at our hands, and no doubt, we expect rewards from Allah for these good deeds. On that my father, i.e. Umar, said, As for myself, by him in whose hand Umar's soul is, I wish that the deeds done by us at the time of the Prophet remain rewardable, while whatsoever we did after the death of the Prophet be enough to save us from punishment in that the good deeds compensate for the bad ones. On that I said, to Ibn Umar, By Allah, your father was better than my father. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 255, narrated Abu Uthman, I heard that Ibn Umar used to become angry if someone mentioned that he had migrated before his father, Umar, and he used to say, Umar and I came to Allah's Apostle and found him having his midday rest, So we returned home. Then Umar sent me again to the Prophet, and said, Go and see whether he is awake. I went to him and entered his place and gave him the pledge of allegiance. Then I went back to Umar and informed him that the Prophet was awake. So we both went, running slowly, and when Umar entered his place, he gave him the pledge of allegiance, and thereafter I too gave him the pledge of allegiance. Volume 5, Book 58, number 256, narrated Al-Bara. Abu Bakr bought a camel's saddle from Azib, and I carried it for him. Azib, i.e. my father, asked Abu Bakr regarding the journey of the migration of Allah's apostle. Abu Bakr said, Close observers were appointed by our enemies to watch us. So we went out at night and travelled throughout the night and the following day till it was noon. Then we perceived a rock and went towards it, and there was some shade under it. I spread a cloak I had with me for Allah's apostle, and then the Prophet lay on it. I went out to guard him, and all of a sudden I saw a shepherd coming with his sheep looking for the shade of the rock as we did. I asked him, O boy, to whom do you belong? He replied, I belong to so-and-so. I asked him, Is there some milk in your sheep? He replied in the affirmative. I asked him, Will you milk? He replied in the affirmative. Then he got hold of one of his sheep. I said to him, Remove the dust from its udder. Then he milked a little milk. I had a water skin with me which was tied with a piece of cloth. I had prepared the water skin for Allah's apostle. So I poured some water over the milk container till its bottom became cold. Then I brought the milk to the Prophet and said, Drink, O Allah's apostle. Allah's apostle drank till I became pleased. Then we departed and the pursuers were following us. Al-Bara added, I then went with Abu Bakr into his home, carrying that saddle, and there I saw his daughter Aisha lying in a bed because of heavy fever, and I saw her father Abu Bakr kissing her cheek and saying, How are you, little daughter? Volume 5, Book 58, number 257, narrated Anas, the servant of the Prophet. When the Prophet arrived at Medina, there was not a single companion of the Prophet who had grey and black hair except Abu Bakr, and he dyed his hair with henna and katam, i.e. plants used for dyeing hair. Through another group of narrators, Anas bin Malik said, When the Prophet arrived at Medina, the eldest amongst his companions was Abu Bakr. He dyed his hair with henna and katam till it became of dark red color. Volume 5, Book 58, number 258, narrate Aisha, Abu Bakr married a woman from the tribe of Bani Kalb, called Bakr. When Abu Bakr migrated to Medina, he divorced her and she was married by her cousin, the poet who said the following poem lamenting the infidels of Quraysh. What is there kept in the well of bad, the owners of the trays of roasted camel humps? What is there kept in the well of bad, the owners of lady singers and friends of the honorable companions, who used to drink wine together? Bakr greets us with the greeting of peace, but can I find peace after my people have gone? The apostle tells us that we shall live again, but what sort of life will owls and skulls live? Volume 5, Book 58, number 259, narrated Abu Bakr, I was with the Prophet in the cave. When I raised my head, I saw the feet of the people. I said, O Allah's apostle! If some of them should look down, they will see us. The Prophet said, O Abu Bakr, be quiet. For we are two and Allah is the third of us. Volume 5, Book 58, number 260, narrated Abu said, Once a Bedouin came to the Prophet and asked him about the migration. The Prophet said, Mercy of Allah be on you. The migration is a quite difficult matter. Have you got some camels? He replied in the affirmative. Then the Prophet said, Do you give their zakat? He replied in the affirmative. The Prophet said, Do you let others benefit by their milk gratis? He replied in the affirmative. Then the Prophet asked, Do you milk them on their watering days and give their milk to the poor and needy? He replied in the affirmative. The Prophet said, Go on doing like this from beyond the seas, and there is no doubt that Allah will not overlook any of your good deeds. Volume 5, Book 58, number 261, narrated Al-Bara. The first people who came to us, in Medina, were Mus'ab bin Umar and Ibn Maktum. Then came to us Amr bin Yasir and Bilal. Volume 5, Book 58, number 262, narrated Al-Bara bin Azib. the first people who came to us, in Medina, were Mus'ab bin Umar and Ibn Maktum who were teaching Quran to the people. Then there came Bilal, Sa'd and Amr bin Yasir. After that, Umar bin al-Khattab came along with 20 other companions of the Prophet. Later on the Prophet himself, to Medina, and I had never seen the people of Medina so joyful as they were on the arrival of Allah's Apostle, for even the slave girls were saying, Allah's Apostle has arrived. And before his arrival I had read the surah starting with Glorify the name of your Lord, the Most High, 87, 1, together with other surahs of Al-Mufassal. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 263, narrated, Aisha, when Allah's Apostle came to Medina, Abu Bakr and Bilal got fever, and I went to both of them and said, O my father, how do you feel? O Bilal, how do you feel? Whenever Abu Bakr's fever got worse, he would say, every man will meet his death once in one morning while he will be among his family, for death is really nearer to him than his leather shoelaces, to his feet. And whenever fever deserted Bilal, he would say aloud, would that I know whether I shall spend a night in the valley of Mecca, with Idkir and Jalil, i.e. kinds of grass, around me, and whether I shall drink one day the water of Mijana, and whether I shall see once again the hills of Shama and Tafil. Then I went to Allah's Apostle and told him of that. He said, O Allah, make us love Medina as much as or more than we used to love Mecca. O Allah, make it healthy and bless its sa and mud, i.e. measures, and take away its fever to Al-Jufa. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 264, narrated, Ubaydullah bin Ad bin Qiyar, I went to Uthman. After reciting Tashahhud, he said, Then after no doubt, Allah sent Muhammad with the truth, and I was amongst those who responded to the call of Allah and his Prophet and believed in the message of Muhammad. Then took part in the 2 migrations. I became the son-in-law of Allah's Apostle and gave the pledge of allegiance to him by Allah. I never disobeyed him, nor did I deceive him till Allah took him unto him. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 265, narrated Ibn Abbas, during the last Hajj led by Umar, Abdurrahman bin Auf returned to his family at Mina and met me there. Abdurrahman said to Umar, O chief of the believers, the season of Hajj is the season when there comes the scum of the people, besides the good amongst them, so I recommend that you should wait till you go back to Medina, for it is the place of migration and sunnah, i.e. the Prophet's tradition, and there you will be able to refer the matter to the religious scholars and the nobles and the people of wise opinions. Umar said, I will speak of it in Medina on my very first sermon I will deliver there. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 266, narrated, Al-Allah, an Ansari woman who gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet that the Ansar drew lots concerning the dwelling of the emigrants. Uthman bin Maz'un was decided to dwell with them, i.e. Al-Allah's family. Uthman fell ill and I nursed him till he died, and we covered him with his clothes. Then the Prophet came to us and I, addressing the dead body, said, O Abu as-Sa'ib, may Allah's mercy be on you. I bear witness that Allah has honored you. On that the Prophet said, How do you know that Allah has honored him? I replied, I do not know. May my father and my mother be sacrificed for you, O Allah's Apostle. But who else is worthy of it, if not Uthman? He said, As to him, by Allah, death has overtaken him, and I hope the best for him. By Allah, though I am the Apostle of Allah, yet I do not know what Allah will do to me. By Allah, I will never assert the piety of anyone after him. That made me sad, and when I slept I saw in a dream a flowing stream for Uthman bin Maz'un. I went to Allah's Apostle and told him of it. He remarked, that symbolizes his good deeds. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 267, narrated, Aisha, the day of Bu'ath was a day, i.e. battle, which Allah caused to take place just before the mission of his apostle so that when Allah's Apostle came to Medina, they, the tribes, had divided into hostile groups, and their nobles had been killed, and all that facilitated their conversion to Islam. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 268, narrated Aisha, that once Abu Bakr came to her on the day of Idul Fitr or Idul Adha while the Prophet was with her and there were 2 girl singers with her, singing songs of the Ansar about the day of Bu'ath. Abu Bakr said twice, musical instrument of Satan. But the Prophet said, leave them Abu Bakr, for every nation has an Eid, i.e. festival, and this day is our Eid. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 269, narrated Anas bin Malik, when Allah's Apostle arrived at Medina, he alighted at the upper part of Medina among the people called Bani Amr bin Auf, and he stayed with them for 14 nights. Then he sent for the chiefs of Bani and Najjar, and they came, carrying their swords. As if I am just now looking at Allah's apostle on his she-camel with Abu Bakr riding behind him, on the same camel, and the chiefs of Bani and Najjar around him till he dismounted in the courtyard of Abu Ayyub's home. The Prophet used to offer the prayer wherever the prayer was due, and he would pray even in sheepfolds. Then he ordered that the mosque be built. He sent for the chiefs of Banu and Najjar, and when they came, he said, O Banu and Najjar, suggest to me the price of this garden of yours. They replied, No. By Allah, we do not demand its price except from Allah. In that garden there were the following things that I will tell you: graves of pagans, unleveled land with holes and pits, etc., and date palm trees. Allah's apostle ordered that the graves of the pagans be dug up and the unleveled land be leveled and the date palm trees be cut down. The trunks of the trees were arranged so as to form the wall facing the Qibla. The stone pillars were built at the sides of its gate. The companions of the Prophet were carrying the stones and reciting some lyrics, and Allah's apostle was with them, and they were saying, O Allah, there is no good excel the good of the hereafter, so bestow victory on the Ansar and the emigrants. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 270, narrated Abdurrahman bin Humayd Az-Zuri. I heard Umar bin Abdulaziz asking As-Sa'ib, the nephew of An-Nimr, what have you heard about residing in Mecca? The other said, I heard Al-Ala bin al-Hadrami saying, Allah's apostle said, an emigrant is allowed to stay in Mecca for 3 days after departing from Mina, i.e., after performing all the ceremonies of Hajj. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 271, narrated Sa'al bin Sa'd. The Prophet's companions did not take as a starting date for the Muslim calendar the day the Prophet had been sent as an apostle or the day of his death, but the day of his arrival at Medina. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 272, narrated Aisha. Originally, 2 rakat were prescribed in every prayer. When the Prophet migrated to Medina, 4 rakat were enjoined, while the journey prayer remained unchanged, i.e. 2 rakat. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 273, narrated Sa'd bin Malik. In the year of Hajjat al-Wada, the Prophet visited me when I fell ill and was about to die because of that illness. I said, O Allah's apostle, I am very ill as you see, and I am a rich man and have no heir except my only daughter. Shall I give 2/3 of my property in charity? He said, No. I said, Shall I then give 1/2 of it in charity? He said, O Sa'd, give 1/3 in charity, and even 1/3 is too much. No doubt, it is better to leave your children rich than to leave them poor, reduced to begging from others. And Allah will reward you for whatever you spend with the intention of gaining Allah's pleasure, even if it were a mouthful of food you put into your wife's mouth. I said, O Allah's apostle, am I to be left behind in Mecca after my companions have gone? He said, if you should be left behind, you will be upgraded and elevated for every deed you will do with a desire to achieve Allah's pleasure. I hope that you will live long so that some people will benefit by you while others will be harmed. O Allah, please fulfill the migration of my companions and do not make them turn back on their heels. But we feel sorry for the unlucky Sa'd bin Khawla. Allah's apostle lamented his death in Mecca. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 274, narrated Anas. When Abdurrahman bin Auf came to Medina and the Prophet established the bond of brotherhood between him and Sa'd bin Arabi al-Ansari, Sa'd suggested that Abdurrahman should accept half of his property and family. Abdurrahman said, May Allah bless you in your family and property, guide me to the market. So Abdurrahman, while doing business in the market, made some profit of some condensed dry yogurt and butter. After a few days the Prophet saw him wearing clothes stained with yellow perfume. The Prophet asked, What is this, O Abdurrahman? He said, O Allah's apostle, I have married an Ansar woman. The Prophet asked, What have you given her as mahr? He, Abdurrahman, said, A piece of gold, about the weight of a date stone. Then the Prophet said, Give a banquet, even though of a sheep. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 275, narrated Anas. When the news of the arrival of the Prophet at Medina reached Abdullah bin Salam, he went to him to ask him about certain things. He said, I am going to ask you about 3 things which only a prophet can answer. What is the first sign of the hour? What is the first food which the people of paradise will eat? Why does a child attract the similarity to his father or to his mother? The Prophet replied, Gabriel has just now informed me of that. Ibn Salam said, he, i.e. Gabriel, is the enemy of the Jews amongst the angels. The Prophet said, as for the first sign of the hour, it will be a fire that will collect the people from the east to the west. As for the first meal which the people of paradise will eat, it will be the chordate, extra, lobe of the fish liver. As for the child, if the man's discharge precedes the woman's discharge, the child attracts the similarity to the man, and if the woman's discharge precedes the man's, then the child attracts the similarity to the woman. On this, Abdullah bin Salam said, I testify that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and that you are the apostle of Allah, and added, O Allah's apostle. Jews invent such lies as make one astonished, so please ask them about me before they know about my conversion to Islam. The Jews came, and the Prophet said, What kind of man is Abdullah bin Salam among you? They replied, The best of us and the son of the best of us and the most superior among us, and the son of the most superior among us. The Prophet said, What would you think if Abdullah bin Salam should embrace Islam? They said, May Allah protect him from that. The Prophet repeated his question and they gave the same answer. Then Abdullah came out to them and said, I testify that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and that Muhammad is the apostle of Allah. On this, the Jews said, He is the most wicked among us and the son of the most wicked among us. So they degraded him. On this, he, i.e. Abdullah bin Salam, said, It is this that I was afraid of, O Allah's apostle. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 276, narrated Abu al-Minhal Abdurrahman bin Mutim, a partner of mine sold some dirhams on credit in the market. I said, Glorified be Allah. Is this legal? He replied, Glorified be Allah. By Allah, when I sold them in the market, nobody objected to it. Then I asked Al-Bara bin Azib about it. He said, We used to make such a transaction when the Prophet came to Medina. So he said, There is no harm in it if it is done from hand to hand, but it is not allowed on credit. Go to Zayd bin al-Arqam and ask him about it, for he was the greatest trader of all of us. So I asked Zayd bin al-Arqam, and he said the same, as Al-Bara did. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 277, narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, Had only 10 Jews, amongst their chiefs, believed me, all the Jews would definitely have believed me. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 278, narrated Abu Musa, when the Prophet arrived at Medina, he noticed that some people among the Jews used to respect Ashura, i.e. 10th of Muharram, and fast on it. The Prophet then said, We have more right to observe fast on this day, and ordered that fasting should be observed on it. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 279, narrated Ibn Abbas, when the Prophet arrived at Medina, he found that the Jews observed fast on the day of Ashura. They were asked the reason for the fast. They replied, This is the day when Allah caused Moses and the children of Israel to have victory over Pharaoh, so we fast on this day as a sign of glorifying it. Allah's apostle said, We are closer to Moses than you. Then he ordered that fasting on this day should be observed. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 280, narrated Abdullah bin Abbas, the Prophet used to keep his hair falling loose while the pagans used to part their hair, and the people of the scriptures used to keep their hair falling loose, and the Prophet liked to follow the people of the scriptures in matters about which he had not been instructed differently, but later on the Prophet started parting his hair. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 281, narrated Ibn Abbas, they, the people of the scriptures, divided this scripture into parts, believing in some portions of it and disbelieving the others. See 15 hours 91 minutes, Volume 5, Book 58, Number 282, narrated Salman al-Farisi, that he was sold, as a slave, by one master to another for more than 10 times, i.e. between 13 and 19. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 283, narrated Salman, I am from Ramhermaz, i.e. a Persian town. Volume 5, Book 58, Number 284, narrated Salman, the interval between Jesus and Muhammad was 600 years. 59. Military expeditions led by the Prophet, Pu, Al-Maghazi, Volume 5, Book 59, number 285, narrated Abu Ishaq. Once, while I was sitting beside Zayd bin al-Arqam, he was asked, how many ghazwat did the Prophet undertake? Zayd replied, 19. They said, in how many ghazwat did you join him? He replied, 17. I asked, which of these was the first? He replied, Al-Ashura or Al-Ashuru. Volume 5, Book 59, number 286, narrated Abdullah bin Marzud, from Sa'd bin Mu'ad. Sa'd bin Mu'ad was an intimate friend of Umayyah bin Khalaf, and whenever Umayyah passed through Medina, he used to stay with Sa'd, and whenever Sa'd went to Mecca, he used to stay with Umayyah. When Allah's apostle arrived at Medina, Sa'd went to perform Umrah and stayed at Umayyah's home in Mecca. He said to Umayyah, tell me of a time when the mosque is empty so that I may be able to perform tawaf around the Kaaba. So Umayyah went with him about midday. Abu Jahl met them and said, O Abu Safwan, who is this man accompanying you? He said, he is Sa'd. Abu Jahl addressed Sa'd saying, I see you wandering about safely in Mecca in spite of the fact that you have given shelter to the people who have changed their religion, became Muslims, and have claimed that you will help them and support them. By Allah, if you were not in the company of Abu Safwan, you would not be able to go your family safely. Sa'd, raising his voice, said to him, by Allah, if you should stop me from doing this, i.e. performing tawaf, I would certainly prevent you from something which is more valuable for you, that is, your passage through Medina. On this, Umayyah said to him, O Sa'd, do not raise your voice before Abu al-Hakam, the chief of the people of the valley of Mecca. Sa'd said, O Umayyah, stop that. By Allah, I have heard Allah's apostle predicting that the Muslim will kill you. Umayyah asked, in Mecca? Sa'd said, I do not know. Umayyah was greatly scared by that news. When Umayyah returned to his family, he said to his wife, O Safwan, don't you know what Sa'd told me? She said, what has he told you? He replied, he claims that Muhammad has informed them, i.e. companions, that they will kill me. I asked him, in Mecca? He replied, I do not know. Then Umayyah added, by Allah, I will never go out of Mecca. But when the day of the Ghazwa of Badr came, Abu Jahl called the people to war, saying, go and protect your caravan. But Umayyah disliked to go out of Mecca. Abu Jahl came to him and said, O Abu Safwan, if the people see you staying behind though you are the chief of the people of the valley, then they will remain behind with you. Abu Jahl kept on urging him to go until he, Umayyah, said, as you have forced me to change my mind, by Allah, I will buy the best camel in Mecca. Then Umayyah said to his wife, O Safwan, prepare what I need for the journey. She said to him, O Abu Safwan, have you forgotten what your Yatribi brother told you? He said, no, but I do not want to go with them but for a short distance. So when Umayyah went out, he used to tie his camel wherever he camped. He kept on doing that till Allah caused him to be killed at Badr. Volume 5, Book 59, number 287, narrated Ka'b bin Malik, I never failed to join Allah's apostle in any of his ghazawat except in the Ghazwa of Tabuk. However, I did not take part in the Ghazwa of Badr, but none who failed to take part in it was blamed, for Allah's apostle had gone out to meet the caravans of Quraysh, but Allah caused them, i.e. Muslims, to meet their enemy unexpectedly, with no previous intention. Volume 5, Book 59, number 288, narrated Ibn Masud, I witnessed Al-Miqdad bin al-Aswad in a scene which would have been dearer to me than anything had I been the hero of that scene. He, i.e. Al-Miqdad, came to the Prophet while the Prophet was urging the Muslims to fight with the pagans. Al-Miqdad said, we will not say as the people of Moses said, go you and your Lord and fight you too. 5:27. But we shall fight on your right and on your left and in front of you and behind you. I saw the face of the Prophet getting bright with happiness, for that saying delighted him. Volume 5, Book 59, number 289, narrated Ibn Abbas, on the day of the Battle of Badr, the Prophet said, O Allah, I appeal to you, to fulfill your covenant and promise. O Allah, if your will is that none should worship you, then give victory to the pagans. Then Abu Bakr took hold of him by the hand and said, this is sufficient for you. The Prophet came out saying, their multitude will be put to flight and they will show their backs. 54, 45, Volume 5, Book 59, Number 290, narrated Ibn Abbas, the believers who failed to join the Ghazwa of Badr and those who took part in it are not equal in reward. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 291, narrated Al-Bara, I and Ibn Umar were considered too young to take part in the Battle of Badr. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 292, narrated Al-Bara, I and Ibn Umar were considered too young to take part in the Battle of Badr, and the number of the emigrant warriors were over 60 men, and the Ansar were over 249. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 293, narrated Al-Bara, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad who took part in Badr told me that their number was that of Saul's, i.e. Talat's, companions who crossed the river of Jordan with him, and they were over 310 men. By Allah, none crossed the river with him but a believer. CQN 2:249, Volume 5, Book 59, Number 294, narrated Al-Bara, we, the companions of Muhammad used to say that the number of the warriors of Badr was the same as the number of Saul's companions who crossed the river of Jordan with him, and none crossed the river with him but a believer, and there were over 310 men. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 295, narrated Al-Bara, as below, Hadith 295. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 296, narrated Al-Bara, we used to say that the warriors of Badr were over 310, as many as the companions of Saul who crossed the river with him, and none crossed the river with him but a believer. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 297, narrated Abdullah bin Marzud, the Prophet faced the Kaaba and invoked evil on some people of Quraysh, on Shaiba bin Rabi'a, Abba bin Rabi'a, Al-Walid bin Abba, and Abu Jahl bin Hisham. I bear witness, by Allah, that I saw them all dead, putrefied by the sun, as that day was a very hot day. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 298, narrated Abdullah, that he came across Abu Jahl while he was on the point of death on the day of Badr. Abu Jahl said, you should not be proud that you have killed me, nor I am ashamed of being killed by my own folk. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 299, narrated Anas, as below, Hadith 300. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 300, narrated Anas, the Prophet said, who will go and see what has happened to Abu Jahl? Ibn Marzud went and found that the two sons of Afra had struck him fatally, and he was in his last breaths. Abdullah bin Marzud said, you Abu Jahl? And took him by the beard. Abu Jahl said, can there be a man superior to one you have killed, or one whom his own folk have killed? Volume 5, Book 59, Number 301, narrated Anas, on the day of Badr, the Prophet said, who will go and see what has happened to Abu Jahl? Ibn Marzud went and found that the two sons of Afra had struck him fatally. Abdullah bin Marzud got hold of his beard and said, are you Abu Jahl? He replied, can there be a man more superior to one whom his own folk have killed, or you have killed? Volume 5, Book 59, Number 302, narrated Anas bin Malik, as above Hadith 301. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 303, narrated Abdurrahman bin Auf, the grandfather of Saleh bin Ibrahim, the story of Badr, namely, the narration regarding the sons of Afra. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 304, narrated Abu Mijlaz, from Qais bin Ubad, Ali bin Abi Talib said, I shall be the first man to kneel down before Allah, the Beneficent, to receive his judgment on the day of resurrection, in my favor. Qais bin Ubad also said, the following verse was revealed in their connection, these two opponents, believers and disbelievers, dispute with each other about their Lord. 22:19, Qais said that they were those who fought on the day of Badr, namely, Hamza, Ali, Ubaidah or Abu Ubaidah bin al-Harith, Shaiba bin Rabi'a, Abba, and Al-Wad bin Abba. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 305, narrated Abu Dha, the following holy verse, these two opponents, believers and disbelievers, dispute with each other about their Lord. 22:19, was revealed concerning 6 men from Quraysh, namely, Ali, Hamza, Ubaidah bin al-Harith, Shaiba bin Rabi'a, Abba bin Rabi'a, and Al-Walid bin Abba. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 306, narrated Ali, the following holy verse, these two opponents, believers and disbelievers, dispute with each other about their Lord. 22:19, was revealed concerning us. Volume 5, Book 59, number 307, narrated Qais bin Ubad. I heard Abu Dhar swearing that these holy verses were revealed in connection with those 6 persons on the day of Bad. Volume 5, Book 59, number 308, narrated Qais. I heard Abu Dhar swearing that the following holy verse, these 2 opponents, believers and disbelievers, disputing with each other about their Lord, 22:19, was revealed concerning those men who fought on the day of Bad, namely, Hamza, Ali, Ubaidah bin al-Harith, Utbah, and Shaiba, the 2 sons of Rabi'a, and al-Walid bin Utbah. Volume 5, Book 59, number 309, narrated Abu Ishaq. A man asked Al-Bara, and I was listening, did Ali take part in the Battle of Bad? Al-Bara said, yes. He even met his enemies in a duel and was clad in 2 armors, one over the other. Volume 5, Book 59, number 310, narrated Abdurrahman bin Auf. I had an agreement with Umayyah bin Khalaf, that he would look after my relatives and property in Mecca, and I would look after his relatives and property in Medina. Abdurrahman then mentioned the killing of Umayyah and his son on the day of Bad, and Bilal said, woe to me if Umayyah remains safe, i.e. alive. Volume 5, Book 59, number 311, narrated Abdullah. The Prophet recited Surat an-Najm and then prostrated himself, and all who were with him prostrated too. But an old man took a handful of dust and touched his forehead with it, saying, this is sufficient for me. Later on I saw him killed as an infidel. Narrated Urwa, the son of Az Zubayr. Az Zubayr had 3 scars caused by the sword, one of which was over his shoulder, and I used to insert my fingers in it. He received 2 of those wounds on the day of Bad and 1 on the day of Al-Yarmouk. When Abdullah bin Zubayr was killed, Abdul Malik bin Marwan said to me, O Urwa, do you recognize the sword of Az Zubayr? I said, yes. He said, what marks does it have? I replied, it has a dent in its sharp edge which was caused in it on the day of Bad. Abdul Malik said, you are right. I.e. their swords have dents because of clashing with the regiments of the enemies. Then Abdul Malik returned that sword to me, i.e. Urwa. Hisham, Urwa's son, said, we estimated the price of the sword as 3,000 dinars, and after that it was taken by one of us, i.e. the inheritors, and I wish I could have had it. Volume 5, Book 59, number 312, narrated Hisham, that his father said, the sword of Az Zubayr was decorated with silver. Hisham added, the sword of Urwa was, also, decorated with silver. Volume 5, Book 59, number 313, narrated Urwa, on the day of the Battle of Al-Yarmouk, the companions of Allah's Apostle said to Az Zubayr, will you attack the enemy so that we shall attack them with you? Az Zubayr replied, if I attack them, you people would not support me. They said, no, we will support you. So Az Zubayr attacked them, i.e. Byzantine, and pierced through their lines, and went beyond them, and none of his companions was with him. Then he returned, and the enemy got hold of the bridle of his horse, and struck him 2 blows, with the sword, on his shoulder. Between these 2 wounds there was a scar caused by a blow he had received on the day of Bad battle. When I was a child I used to play with those scars by putting my fingers in them. On that day, my brother, Abdullah bin Az Zubayr, was also with him, and he was 10 years old. Az Zubayr had carried him on a horse and led him to the care of some men. Volume 5, Book 59, number 314, narrated Abu Talha, on the day of Bad, the Prophet ordered that the corpses of 24 leaders of Quraysh should be thrown into one of the dirty dry wells of Bad. It was a habit of the Prophet that whenever he conquered some people, he used to stay at the battlefield for 3 nights. So, on the 3rd day of the Battle of Bad, he ordered that his she-camel be saddled. Then he set out, and his companions followed him, saying among themselves, definitely he, i.e. the Prophet, is proceeding for some great purpose. When he halted at the edge of the well, he addressed the corpses of the Quraysh infidels by their names and their fathers' names, O so-and-so, son of so-and-so, and O so-and-so, son of so-and-so. Would it have pleased you if you had obeyed Allah and His Apostle? We have found true what our Lord promised us. Have you too found true what your Lord promised you? Umar said, O Allah's Apostle, you are speaking to bodies that have no souls. Allah's Apostle said, by him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, you do not hear what I say better than they do. Qatada said, Allah brought them to life, again, to let them hear him, to reprimand them and slight them and take revenge over them and cause them to feel remorseful and regretful. Volume 5, Book 59, number 315, narrated Ibn Abbas, regarding the statement of Allah, those who have changed Allah's blessings for disbelief. 14:28, the people meant here by Allah are the infidels of Quraysh. Amr, a sub-narrator said, those are the infidels of Quraysh and Muhammad is Allah's blessing. Regarding Allah's statement, and have led their people into the house of destruction. 14:29, Ibn Abbas said, it means the fire they will suffer from, after their death, on the day of Bad. Volume 5, Book 59, number 316, narrated Hisham's father. It was mentioned before Aisha that Ibn Umar attributed the following statement to the Prophet, the dead person is punished in the grave because of the crying and lamentation of his family. On that, Aisha said, but Allah's Apostle said, the dead person is punished for his crimes and sins while his family cry over him then. She added, and this is similar to the statement of Allah's Apostle when he stood by the edge of the well which contained the corpses of the pagans killed at Bad, they hear what I say. She added, but he said now they know very well what I used to tell them was the truth. Aisha then recited, you cannot make the dead hear. 30:52, and you cannot make those who are in their graves hear you. 35:22, that is, when they had taken their places in the hell fire. Volume 5, Book 59, number 317, narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet stood at the well of Bad, which contained the corpses of the pagans, and said, have you found true what your Lord promised you? Then he further said, they now hear what I say. This was mentioned before Aisha, and she said, but the Prophet said, now they know very well that what I used to tell them was the truth. Then she recited the holy verse, you cannot make the dead hear, till the end of verse. 30:52, Volume 5, Book 59, number 318, narrated Anas, Horita was martyred on the day of the Battle of Bad, and he was a young boy then. His mother came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's Apostle, you know how dear Horita is to me. If he is in paradise, I shall remain patient, and hope for reward from Allah, but if it is not so, then you shall see what I do. He said, may Allah be merciful to you. Have you lost your senses? Do you think there is only one paradise? There are many paradises, and your son is in the most superior paradise of Al-Firdaus. Volume 5, Book 59, number 319, narrated Ali, Allah's Apostle sent me, Abu Marthad and Az Zubayr, and all of us were riding horses, and said, go till you reach Rawdat where there is a pagan woman carrying a letter from Hatib bin Abi Balta to the pagans of Mecca. So we found her riding her camel at the place which Allah's Apostle had mentioned. We said to her, give us the letter. She said, I have no letter. Then we made her camel kneel down and we searched her, but we found no letter. Then we said, Allah's Apostle had not told us a lie, certainly. Take out the letter, otherwise we will strip you naked. When she saw that we were determined, she put her hand below her waist belt, for she had tied her cloak round her waist, and she took out the letter, and we brought her to Allah's Apostle. Then Umar said, O Allah's Apostle, this Hatib has betrayed Allah, his Apostle, and the believers. Let me cut off his neck. The Prophet asked Hatib, what made you do this? Hatib said, by Allah, I did not intend to give up my belief in Allah and his Apostle, but I wanted to have some influence among the Mecca people so that through it, Allah might protect my family and property. There is none of your companions but has some of his relatives there through whom Allah protects his family and property. The Prophet said, he has spoken the truth, do no say to him but good. Umar said, he has betrayed Allah, his Apostle, and the faithful believers. Let me cut off his neck. The Prophet said, is he not one of the bad warriors? Maybe Allah looked at the bad warriors and said, do whatever you like, as I have granted paradise to you, or said, I have forgiven you. On this, tears came out of Umar's eyes, and he said, Allah and his Apostle know better. Volume 5, Book 59, number 320, narrated Uzaid, on the day of Bad, Allah's Apostle said to us, when the enemy comes near to you, shoot at them, but use your arrows sparingly, so that your arrows should not be wasted. Volume 5, Book 59, number 321, narrated Abu Uzaid, on the day of the Battle of Badr, Allah's Apostle said to us, when your enemy comes near to you, i.e. overcome you by sheer number, shoot at them, but use your arrows sparingly. Volume 5, Book 59, number 322, narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, on the day of Uhud the Prophet appointed Abdullah bin Jubair as chief of the archers, and 70 among us were injured and martyred. On the day of the Battle of Badr, the Prophet and his companions had inflicted 140 casualties on the pagans, 70 were taken prisoners, and 70 were killed. Abu Sufyan said, this is a day of revenge, for the day of Badr and the issue of war is undecided. Volume 5, Book 59, number 323, narrated Abu Musa, that the Prophet said, the good is what Allah gave us later on, after Uhud, and the reward of truthfulness is what Allah gave us after the day of the Battle of Badr. Volume 5, Book 59, number 324, narrated Abdurrahman bin Auf, while I was fighting in the front file on the day of the Battle of Badr, suddenly I looked behind and saw on my right and left 2 young boys and did not feel safe by standing between them. Then one of them asked me secretly so that his companion may not hear, "Oh uncle, show me Abu Jahl." I said, "Oh nephew, what will you do to him?" He said, "I have promised Allah that if I see him, i.e. Abu Jahl, I will either kill him or be killed before I kill him." Then the other said the same to me secretly so that his companion should not hear. I would not have been pleased to be in between 2 other men instead of them. Then I pointed him, i.e. Abu Jahl, out to them. Both of them attacked him like 2 hawks till they knocked him down. Those 2 boys were the sons of Afra, i.e. an Ansari woman. Volume 5, Book 59, number 325, narrated Abu Huraira, Allah's Apostle sent out 10 spies under the command of Asim bin Thabit al-Ansari, the grandfather of Asim bin Umar al-Khattab. When they reached a place called Al-Hada between Asfan and Mecca, their presence was made known to a subtribe of Hudhail called Banu Lihian. So they sent about 100 archers after them. The archers traced the footsteps of the Muslims till they found the traces of dates which they had eaten at one of their camping places. The archers said, "These dates are of Yathrib, i.e. Medina," and went on tracing the Muslims' footsteps. When Asim and his companions became aware of them, they took refuge in a high place. But the enemy encircled them and said, "Come down and surrender. We give you a solemn promise and covenant that we will not kill any one of you." Asim bin Thabit said, "O people, as for myself, I will never get down to be under the protection of an infidel. O Allah, inform your Prophet about us." So the archers threw their arrows at them and martyred Asim. 3 of them came down and surrendered to them, accepting their promise and covenant, and they were Kubayb, Zaid bin Ad-Dathina, and another man. When the archers got hold of them, they untied the strings of the arrow bows and tied their captives with them. The 3rd man said, "This is the first proof of treachery. By Allah, I will not go with you, for I follow the example of these." He meant the martyred companions. The archers dragged him and struggled with him, till they martyred him. Then Kubayb and Zaid bin Ad-Dathina were taken away by them, and later on they sold them as slaves in Mecca after the event of the Badr battle. The sons of Al-Harith bin Amr bin Nawfal bought Kubayb, for he was a person who had killed their father, Al-Harith bin Amr, on the day of the Battle of Badr. Kubayb remained imprisoned by them till they decided unanimously to kill him. One day Kubayb borrowed from a daughter of Al-Harith a razor for shaving his public hair, and she lent it to him. By chance, while she was inattentive, a little son of hers went to him, i.e. Kubayb, and she saw that Kubayb had seated him on his thigh while the razor was in his hand. She was so much terrified that Kubayb noticed her fear and said, "Are you afraid that I will kill him?" "Never would I do such a thing." Later on, while narrating the story, she said, "By Allah, I had never seen a better captive than Kubayb. By Allah, one day I saw him eating from a bunch of grapes in his hand while he was fettered with iron chains, and, at that time, there was no fruit in Mecca." She used to say, it was food Allah had provided Kubayb with. When they took him to Al-Hil out of Mecca sanctuary to martyr him, Kubayb requested them, "Allow me to offer a 2-rakat prayer." They allowed him, and he prayed 2 rakat and then said, "By Allah, had I not been afraid that you would think I was worried, I would have prayed more." Then he invoked evil upon them, saying, O Allah! Count them and kill them one by one, and do not leave any one of them. Then he recited, As I am martyred as a Muslim, I do not care in what way I receive my death for Allah's sake, for this is for the cause of Allah. If He wishes, He will bless the cut limbs of my body. Then Abu Sava, Ubaqa bin al-Harith went up to him and killed him. It was Kubayb who set the tradition of praying for any Muslim to be martyred in captivity, before he is executed. The Prophet told his companions of what had happened to those 10 spies, on the same day they were martyred. Some Quraysh people, being informed of Asim bin Thabit's death, sent some messengers to bring a part of his body so that his death might be known for certain, for he had previously killed one of their leaders, in the Battle of Badr. But Allah sent a swarm of wasps to protect the dead body of Asim, and they shielded him from the messengers who could not cut anything from his body. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 326, narrated Nafi, Ibn Umar was once told that Said bin Zaid bin Amr bin Nufail, one of the bad warriors, had fallen ill on a Friday. Ibn Umar rode to him late in the forenoon. The time of the Friday prayer approached and Ibn Umar did not take part in the Friday prayer. Narrated Sabiah bint al-Harith, that she was married to Sa'd bin Khawla who was from the tribe of Bani Amr bin Lu'ay, and was one of those who fought the bad battle. He died while she was pregnant during Hajjat al-Wada. Soon after his death, she gave birth to a child. When she completed the term of deliver, i.e. became clean, she prepared herself for suitors. Abu as-Sanabil bin Bukak, a man from the tribe of Bani Abd Udal, called on her and said to her, What? I see you dressed up for the people to ask you in marriage. Do you want to marry? By Allah, you are not allowed to marry unless 4 months and 10 days have elapsed after your husband's death. Subayy in her narration said, when he, i.e. Abu as-Sanabil, said this to me, I put on my dress in the evening and went to Allah's Apostle and asked him about this problem. He gave the verdict that I was free to marry as I had already given birth to my child and ordered me to marry if I wished. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 327, narrated Rifa, who was one of the bad warriors. Gabriel came to the Prophet and said, How do you look upon the warriors of Badr among yourselves? The Prophet said, as the best of the Muslims, or said a similar statement. On that, Gabriel said, and so are the angels who participated in the bad battle. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 328, narrated Mu'ad bin Rifai bin Rafi. Rifai was one of the warriors of Badr while his father, Rafi, was one of the people of Al-Aqaba, i.e. those who gave the pledge of allegiance at Al-Aqaba. Rafi used to say to his son, I would not have been happier if I had taken part in the bad battle instead of taking part in the Aqaba pledge. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 329, narrated Mu'ad, the one who asked the Prophet, was Gabriel. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 330, narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet said on the day of the battle of Badr, this is Gabriel holding the head of his horse and equipped with arms for the battle. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 331, narrated Anas, Abu Zaid died and did not leave any offspring, and he was one of the bad warriors. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 332, narrated Ibn Abbas, Abu Said bin Malik al-Qudri returned from a journey and his family offered him some meat of sacrifices offered at Idul Adha. On that he said, I will not eat it before asking whether it is allowed. He went to his maternal brother, Qatada bin Nu'man, who was one of the bad warriors, and asked him about it. Qatada said, After your departure, an order was issued by the Prophet cancelling the prohibition of eating sacrifices after 3 days. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 333, narrated Urwa, Az Zubair said, I met Ubaydah bin Said bin Al-Az on the day of the battle of Badr and he was covered with armor, so much that only his eyes were visible. He was surnamed Abu Dat al-Qarish. He said, proudly, I am Abu al-Qarish. I attacked him with a spear and pierced his eye, and he died. I put my foot over his body to pull that spear out, but even then I had to use a great force to take it out as its both ends were bent. Urwa said, later on Allah's Apostle asked Az Zubair for the spear and he gave it to him. When Allah's Apostle died, Az Zubair took it back. After that Abu Bakr demanded it and he gave it to him, and when Abu Bakr died, Az Zubair took it back. Umar then demanded it from him and he gave it to him. When Umar died, Az Zubair took it back, and then Uthman demanded it from him and he gave it to him. When Uthman was martyred, the spear remained with Ali's offspring. Then Abdullah bin Az Zubair demanded it back, and it remained with him till he was martyred. Volume 5, Book 59, number 334, narrated, Ubadah bin as-Samit, who was one of the bad warriors, Allah's apostle said, "Give me the pledge of allegiance." Volume 5, Book 59, number 335, narrated, Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, Abu Hudayfa, one of those who fought the Battle of Badr, with Allah's apostle adopted Salim as his son and married his niece Hind bint Al-Wad bin Abiba to him, and Salim was a freed slave of an Ansari woman. Allah's apostle also adopted Zaid as his son. In the pre-Islamic period of ignorance, the custom was that, if one adopted a son, the people would call him by the name of the adopted father whom he would inherit as well, till Allah revealed, "Call them, adopted sons, by the names of their fathers." 33, 5, Volume 5, Book 59, number 336, narrated Arubai bint Muawwid, the Prophet came to me after consuming his marriage with me and sat down on my bed as you, the sub-narrator, are sitting now, and small girls were beating the tambourine and singing in lamentation of my father who had been killed on the day of the Battle of Badr. Then one of the girls said, "There is a prophet amongst us who knows what will happen tomorrow." The Prophet said to her, "Do not say this, but go on saying what you have spoken before." Volume 5, Book 59, number 337, narrated Ibn Abbas, as below, Hadith 338. Volume 5, Book 59, number 338, narrated Ibn Abbas, Abu Talha, companion of Allah's apostle and one of those who fought at Badr together with Allah's apostle, told me that Allah's apostle said, "Angels do not enter a house in which there is a dog or a picture." He meant the images of creatures that have souls. Volume 5, Book 59, number 339, narrated Ali, as below, Hadith 340. Volume 5, Book 59, number 340, narrated Ali, I had a she-camel which I got in my share from the booty of the Battle of Badr, and the Prophet had given me another she-camel from the kumus which Allah had bestowed on him that day. And when I intended to celebrate my marriage to Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet, I made an arrangement with a goldsmith from Bani Kainuka that he should go with me to bring idkir, i.e. a kind of grass used by goldsmiths, which I intended to sell to goldsmiths in order to spend its price on the marriage banquet. While I was collecting ropes and sacks of pack saddles for my 2 she-camels which were kneeling down beside an Ansari's dwelling, and after collecting what I needed, I suddenly found that the humps of the 2 she-camels had been cut off and their flanks had been cut open and portions of their livers had been taken out. On seeing that, I could not help weeping. I asked, "Who has done that?" They, i.e. the people, said, "Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib has done it. He is present in this house with some Ansari drinkers, a girl singer, and his friends." The singer said in her song, "O Hamza, get at the fat she-camels." On hearing this, Hamza rushed to his sword and cut up the camels' humps and cut their flanks open and took out portions from their livers. Then I came to the Prophet, with whom Zaid bin Haritha was present. The Prophet noticed my state and asked, "What is the matter?" I said, "O Allah's apostle, I have never experienced such a day as today. Hamza attacked my 2 she-camels, cut off their humps and cut their flanks open, and he is still present in a house along some drinkers." The Prophet asked for his cloak, put it on, and proceeded, followed by Zaid bin Haritha and myself, till he reached the house where Hamza was. He asked the permission to enter, and he was permitted. The Prophet started blaming Hamza for what he had done. Hamza was drunk and his eyes were red. He looked at the Prophet, then raised his eyes to look at his knees and raised his eves more to look at his face, and then said, "You are not but my father's slaves." When the Prophet understood that Hamza was drunk, he retreated, walking backwards, went out, and we left with him. Volume 5, Book 59, number 341, narrated Ibn Makhl, Ali led the funeral prayer of Sa'al bin Hunayf and said, he was one of the warriors of Badr. Volume 5, Book 59, number 342, narrated Abdullah bin Umar bin al-Khattab said, when my daughter, Hafsa bint Umar lost her husband Kunais bin Hudayfa as-Sani, who was one of the companions of Allah's apostle and had fought in the Battle of Badr and had died in Medina, I met Uthman bin Affan and suggested that he should marry Hafsa, saying, "If you wish, I will marry Hafsa bint Umar to you." On that, he said, I will think it over. I waited for a few days and then he said to me, I am of the opinion that I shall not marry at present. Then I met Abu Bakr and said, if you wish, I will marry you, Hafsa bint Umar. He kept quiet and did not give me any reply, and I became more angry with him than I was with Uthman. Some days later, Allah's Apostle demanded her hand in marriage and I married her to him. Later on Abu Bakr met me and said, perhaps you were angry with me when you offered me Hafsa for marriage and I gave no reply to you. I said, yes. Abu Bakr said, nothing prevented me from accepting your offer except that I learned that Allah's Apostle had referred to the issue of Hafsa and I did not want to disclose the secret of Allah's Apostle, but had he, i.e. the Prophet, given her up I would surely have accepted her. Volume 5, Book 59, number 343, narrated Abu Masud al-Badri, the Prophet said, a man spending on his family is a deed of charity. Volume 5, Book 59, number 344, narrated Az Zuri, I heard Urwa bin Az Zubayr talking to Umar bin Abdul Aziz during the latter's governorship at Medina. He said, Al-Mughira bin Shubayh delayed the Asr prayer when he was the ruler of Al-Kufa. On that, Abu Mas'ud Uqba bin Aymar al-Ansari, the grandfather of Sa'id bin Hassan, who was one of the bad warriors, came in and said to Al-Mughira, you know that Gabriel came down and offered the prayer and Allah's Apostle prayed 5 prescribed prayers, and Gabriel said to the Prophet, I have been ordered to do so, He offer these 5 prayers at these fixed stated hours of the day. Volume 5, Book 59, number 345, narrated Abu Masud al-Badri, Allah's Apostle said, it is sufficient for one to recite the last 2 verses of Surat al-Baqarah at night. Volume 5, Book 59, number 346, narrated Mahmud bin Arabi, that Itban bin Malik, who was one of the companions of the Prophet and one of the warriors of Badr, came to Allah's Apostle. Volume 5, Book 59, number 347, narrated Ibn Shihab, I asked Al-Hussein bin Muhammad, who was one of the sons of Salim and one of the nobles amongst them, about the narration of Mahmud bin Arabi from Itban bin Malik, and he confirmed it. Volume 5, Book 59, number 348, narrated Abdullah bin Aymar bin Rabi'a, who was one of the leaders of Bani Adi, and his father participated in the Battle of Badr in the company of the Prophet. Umar appointed Qudama bin Maz'un as ruler of Bahrain. Qudama was one of the warriors of the Battle of Badr and was the maternal uncle of Abdullah bin Umar and Hafsa. Volume 5, Book 59, number 349, narrated Az Zuri, Salim bin Abdullah told me that Rafi' bin Khadij told Abdullah bin Umar that his 2 paternal uncles who had fought in the Battle of Badr informed him that Allah's Apostle forbade the renting of fields. I said to Salim, do you rent your land? He said, yes, for Rafi' is mistaken. Volume 5, Book 59, number 350, narrated Abdullah bin Shaddad bin al-Had al-Laythi, I saw Rifai bin Rafi al-Ansari, who was a bad warrior. Volume 5, Book 59, number 351, narrated Al-Miswar bin Makrama, that Ammar bin Auf, who was an ally of Bani Amir bin Lu'ay and one of those who fought at Badr in the company of the Prophet, said, Allah's Apostle sent Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah to Bahrain to bring the jizya taxation from its people, for Allah's Apostle had made a peace treaty with the people of Bahrain and appointed Al-Ala bin al-Hadrami as their ruler. So, Abu Ubaidah arrived with the money from Bahrain. When the Ansar heard of the arrival of Abu Ubaidah, on the next day, they offered the morning prayer with the Prophet, and when the morning prayer had finished, they presented themselves before him. On seeing the Ansar, Allah's Apostle smiled and said, I think you have heard that Abu Ubaidah has brought something. They replied, indeed, it is so, O Allah's Apostle. He said, be happy, and hope for what will please you. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will be poor, but I fear that worldly wealth will be bestowed upon you as it was bestowed upon those who lived before you. So you will compete amongst yourselves for it, as they competed for it, and it will destroy you as it did them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 352, narrated Nafi, Ibn Umar used to kill all kinds of snakes until Abu Lubaba al-Badri told him that the Prophet had forbidden the killing of harmless snakes living in houses and called jinan. So Ibn Umar gave up killing them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 353, narrated Anas bin Malik, some men of the Ansar requested Allah's Apostle to allow them to see him. They said, allow us to forgive the ransom of our sister's son, Abbas. The Prophet said, by Allah, you will not leave a single dirham of it. Volume 5, Book 59, number 354, narrated, Ubaydullah bin al-Qiyar, that Al-Miqdad bin Amr al-Kindi, who was an ally of Bani Zura and one of those who fought the Battle of Badr together with Allah's Apostle, told him that he said to Allah's Apostle, "Suppose I met one of the infidels and we fought, and he struck one of my hands with his sword and cut it off and then took refuge in a tree and said, 'I surrender to Allah,' i.e., I have become a Muslim, could I kill him, O Allah's Apostle?" After he had said this, Allah's Apostle said, "You should not kill him." Al-Miqdad said, "O Allah's Apostle, but he had cut off one of my two hands, and then he had uttered those words." Allah's Apostle replied, "You should not kill him, for if you kill him, he would be in your position where you had been before killing him, and you would be in his position where he had been before uttering those words." Volume 5, Book 59, number 355, narrated Anas, Allah's Apostle said on the day of Badr, "Who will go and see what has happened to Abu Jahl?" Ibn Mas'ud went and saw him struck by the two sons of Rafra and was on the point of death. Ibn Mas'ud said, "You Abu Jahl?" Abu Jahl replied, "Can there be a man more superior to the one whom you have killed, or as Sulayman said, or his own folk have killed?" Abu Jahl added, "Would that I had been killed by other than a mere farmer." Volume 5, Book 59, number 356, narrated Ibn Abbas, Umar said, "When the Prophet died I said to Abu Bakr, 'Let us go to our Ansari brethren.' We met two pious men from them, who had fought in the Battle of Badr. When I mentioned this to Urwa bin Az Zubayr, he said, 'Those two pious men were Uwaym bin Sa'ida and Man bin Adi.'" Volume 5, Book 59, number 357, narrated Qais, "The Badr warriors were given 5,000 dirhams each, yearly." Umar said, "I will surely give them more than what I will give to others." Volume 5, Book 59, number 358, narrated Jubair bin Mut'im, "I heard the Prophet reciting Surat at-Tur in Maghrib prayer, and that was at a time when belief was first planted in my heart." The Prophet, while speaking about the war prisoners of Badr, said, "Were Al-Mutim bin Adi alive and interceded with me for these filthy people, I would definitely forgive them for his sake." Narrated Said bin al-Musayyab, "When the first civil strife, in Islam, took place because of the murder of Uthman, it left none of the Badr warriors alive. When the second civil strife, that is the Battle of Al-Harra, took place, it left none of the Hudaybiyah treaty companions alive. Then the third civil strife took place and it did not subside till it had exhausted all the strength of the people." Volume 5, Book 59, number 359, narrated Yunus bin Yazid, "I heard Az Zuhri saying, I heard Urwa bin Az Zubayr, Said bin al-Musayyab, Alqamah bin Waqas and Ubaydullah bin Abdullah each narrating part of the narrative concerning Aisha the wife of the Prophet. Aisha said, when I and Mr. were returning, and Mr. stumbled by treading on the end of her robe, and on that she said, May Mr. be ruined. I said, You have said a bad thing, you curse a man who took part in the Battle of Badr. Az Zuhri then narrated the narration of the lie, forged against Aisha. Volume 5, Book 59, number 360, narrated Ibn Shihab, these were the battles of Allah's Apostle, which he fought, and while mentioning the bad battle, he said, while the corpses of the pagans were being thrown into the well, Allah's Apostle said to them, Have you found what your Lord promised true? Abdullah said, some of the Prophet's companions said, O Allah's Apostle, you are addressing dead people. Allah's Apostle replied, You do not hear what I am saying, better than they. The total number of Muslim fighters from Quraysh who fought in the Battle of Badr and were given their share of the booty were 81 men. Az Zubayr said, when their shares were distributed, their number was 101 men. But Allah knows it better. Volume 5, Book 59, number 361, narrated Az Zubayr, on the day of Badr, Qurayshi emigrants received 100 shares of the war booty. Volume 5, Book 59, number 362, narrated Ibn Umar, Bani and Nadir and Bani Qurayza fought against the Prophet violating their peace treaty, so the Prophet exiled Bani and Nadir and allowed Bani Qurayza to remain at their places, in Medina, taking nothing from them till they fought against the Prophet again. He then killed their men and distributed their women, children and property among the Muslims, but some of them came to the Prophet and he granted them safety, and they embraced Islam. He exiled all the Jews from Medina. They were the Jews of Bani Kainuka, the tribe of Abdullah bin Salam and the Jews of Bani Horata and all the other Jews of Medina. Volume 5, Book 59, number 363, narrated Said bin Jubair, I mentioned to Ibn Abbas Surat Hasha. He said, call it Surat an-Nadir. Volume 5, Book 59, number 364, narrated Anas bin Malik, some people used to allot some date palm trees to the Prophet as gift till he conquered Banu Qurayza and Bani an-Nadir, whereupon he started returning their date palms to them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 365, narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Apostle had the date palm trees of Bani al-Nadir burnt and cut down at a place called Al-Bukhari. Allah then revealed, what you cut down of the date palm trees, of the enemy, or you left them standing on their stems. It was by Allah's permission. 59, 5, Volume 5, Book 59, number 366, narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet burnt the date palm trees of Bani an-Nadir. Hassan bin Thabit said the following poetic verses about this event, the terrible burning of Al-Bukhari has been received indifferently by the nobles of Bani Lu'ay, the masters and nobles of Quraysh. Abu Sufyan bin al-Harith, i.e. the Prophet's cousin who was still a disbeliever then, replied to Hassan, saying in poetic verses, may Allah bless that burning and set all its, i.e. Medina's, parts on burning fire. You will see who is far from it, i.e. Al-Bukhari, and which of our lands will be harmed by it, i.e. the burning of Al-Bukhari. Volume 5, Book 59, number 367, narrated Malik bin Aus al-Hadathan an-Nazri, that once Umar bin al-Khattab called him and while he was sitting with him, his gatekeeper, Yafa came and said, will you admit Uthman, Abdurrahman bin Auf, Az Zubayr, and Sa'd bin Abi Waqas, who are waiting for your permission? Umar said, yes, let them come in. After a while, Yafa came again and said, will you admit Ali and Abbas who are asking your permission? Umar said, yes. So, when the two entered, Abbas said, O chief of the believers, judge between me and this, i.e. Ali. Both of them had a dispute regarding the property of Bani an-Nadir which Allah had given to his apostle as fai, i.e. booty gained without fighting. Ali and Abbas started reproaching each other. The present people, i.e. Uthman and his companions, said, O chief of the believers, give your verdict in their case and relieve each from the other. Umar said, wait, I beseech you, by Allah, by whose permission both the heaven and the earth stand fast. Do you know that Allah's Apostle said, we, prophets, our properties are not to be inherited, and whatever we leave, is to be spent in charity, and he said it about himself. They, i.e. Uthman and his company, said, he did say it. Umar then turned toward Ali and Abbas and said, I beseech you both, by Allah. Do you know that Allah's Apostle said this? They replied in the affirmative. He said, now I am talking to you about this matter. Allah the Glorified favored his apostle with something of this fai, i.e. booty won without fighting, which he did not give to anybody else. Allah said, and what Allah gave to his apostle, fai, booty, from them for which you made no expedition with either cavalry or camelry. But Allah gives power to his apostles over whomsoever he will, and Allah is able to do all things. 59, 6. So this property was especially granted to Allah's apostle. But by Allah, the Prophet neither took it all for himself only, nor deprived you of it, but he gave it to all of you and distributed it amongst you till only this remained out of it. And from this Allah's apostle used to spend the yearly maintenance for his family, and whatever used to remain, he used to spend it where Allah's property is spent, i.e. in charity. Allah's apostle kept on acting like that during all his life, then he died, and Abu Bakr said, I am the successor of Allah's apostle. So he, i.e. Abu Bakr, took charge of this property and disposed of it in the same manner as Allah's apostle used to do, and all of you, at that time, knew all about it. Then Umar turned toward Ali and Abbas and said, you both remember that Abu Bakr disposed of it in the way you have described, and Allah knows that, in that matter, he was sincere, pious, rightly guided and the follower of the right. Then Allah caused Abu Bakr to die, and I said, I am the successor of Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr. So I kept this property in my possession for the first 2 years of my rule, i.e. caliphate, and I used to dispose of it in the same way as Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr used to do, and Allah knows that I have been sincere, pious, rightly guided and the follower of the right. In this matter later on both of you, i.e. Ali and Abbas, came to me, and the claim of you both was one and the same, O Abbas. you also came to me. So I told you both that Allah's apostle said, our property is not inherited, but whatever we leave is to be given in charity. Then when I thought that I should better hand over this property to you both or the condition that you will promise and pledge before Allah that you will dispose it off in the same way as Allah's apostle and Abu Bakr did and as I have done since the beginning of my caliphate, or else you should not speak to me about it. So, both of you said to me, hand it over to us on this condition. And on this condition I handed it over to you. Do you want me now to give a decision other than that decision? By Allah, with whose permission both the sky and the earth stand fast, I will never give any decision other than that decision, till the last hour is established. But if you are unable to manage it, i.e. that property, then return it to me, and I will manage on your behalf. The sub-narrator said, I told Urwa bin Az Zubayr of this hadith, and he said, Malik bin Aus has told the truth. I heard Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, saying, the wives of the Prophet sent Uthman to Abu Bakr demanding from him their 1/8 of the fai which Allah had granted to his apostle. But I used to oppose them and say to them, will you not fear Allah? Don't you know that the Prophet used to say, our property is not inherited, but whatever we leave is to be given in charity? The Prophet mentioned that regarding himself. He added, the family of Muhammad can take their sustenance from this property. So the wives of the Prophet stopped demanding it when I told them of that. So, this property, of Sadaqah, was in the hands of Ali, who withheld it from Abbas and overpowered him. Then it came in the hands of Hassan bin Ali, then in the hands of Hussein bin Ali, and then in the hands of Ali bin Hussein and Hassan bin Hassan, and each of the last two used to manage it in turn. Then it came in the hands of Zayd bin Hassan, and it was truly the Sadaqah of Allah's Apostle. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 368, narrated, Aisha, Fatima and Al-Abbas came to Abu Bakr, claiming their inheritance of the Prophet's land of Fadak and his share from Khaybar. Abu Bakr said, I heard the Prophet saying, our property is not inherited, and whatever we leave is to be given in charity. But the family of Muhammad can take their sustenance from this property. By Allah, I would love to do good to the kith and kin of Allah's Apostle rather than to my own kith and kin. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 369, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's Apostle said, who is willing to kill Ka'b bin al-Ashraf who has hurt Allah and his Apostle? Thereupon Muhammad bin Maslama got up saying, O Allah's Apostle, would you like that I kill him? The Prophet said, yes. Muhammad bin Maslama said, then allow me to say a false thing, i.e. to deceive Ka'b. The Prophet said, you may say it. Then Muhammad bin Maslama went to Ka'b and said, that man, i.e. Muhammad, demands Sadaqah, i.e. Zakat, from us, and he has troubled us, and I have come to borrow something from you. On that, Ka'b said, by Allah, you will get tired of him. Muhammad bin Maslama said, now as we have followed him, we do not want to leave him unless and until we see how his end is going to be. Now we want you to lend us a camel load or two of food. Some difference between narrators about a camel load or two. Ka'b said, yes, I will lend you, but you should mortgage something to me. Muhammad bin Maslama and his companion said, what do you want? Ka'b replied, mortgage your women to me. They said, how can we mortgage our women to you, and you are the most handsome of the Arabs? Ka'b said, then mortgage your sons to me. They said, how can we mortgage our sons to you? Later they would be abused by the people saying that so-and-so has been mortgaged for a camel load of food. That would cause us great disgrace, but we will mortgage our arms to you. Muhammad bin Maslama and his companion promised Ka'b that Muhammad would return to him. He came to Ka'b at night along with Ka'b's foster brother, Abu Nailah. Ka'b invited them to come into his fort, and then he went down to them. His wife asked him, where are you going at this time? Ka'b replied, none but Muhammad bin Maslama and my foster brother Abu Nailah have come. His wife said, I hear a voice as if dropping blood is from him. Ka'b said, they are none but my brother Muhammad bin Maslama and my foster brother Abu Nailah. A generous man should respond to a call at night even if invited to be killed. Muhammad bin Maslama went with two men. Some narrators mention the men as Abu bin Jabir, Al-Harith bin Aus and Abad bin Bishr. So Muhammad bin Maslama went in together with two men, and sailed to them. When Ka'b comes, I will touch his hair and smell it, and when you see that I have got hold of his head, strip him. I will let you smell his head." Ka'b bin al-Ashraf came down to them wrapped in his clothes, and diffusing perfume. Muhammad bin Maslama said, "Have never smelt a better scent than this." Ka'b replied, "I have got the best Arab women who know how to use the high class of perfume." Muhammad bin Maslama requested Ka'b, "Will you allow me to smell your head?" Ka'b said, "Yes." Muhammad smelt it and made his companions smell it as well. Then he requested Ka'b again, "Will you let me smell your head?" Ka'b said, "Yes." When Muhammad got a strong hold of him, he said to his companions, "Get at him." So they killed him and went to the Prophet and informed him. Abu Rafi was killed after Ka'b bin al-Ashraf. Volume 5, Book 59, number 370, narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, Allah's Apostle sent a group of persons to Abu Rafi. Abdullah bin Atik entered his house at night, while he was sleeping, and killed him. Volume 5, Book 59, number 371, narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, Allah's Apostle sent some men from the Ansar to kill Abu Rafi, the Jew, and appointed Abdullah bin Atik as their leader. Abu Rafi used to hurt Allah's Apostle and help his enemies against him. He lived in his castle in the land of Hijaz. When those men approached the castle, after the sun had set and the people had brought back their livestock to their homes, Abdullah bin Atik said to his companions, "Sit down at your places. I am going, and I will try to play a trick on the gatekeeper so that I may enter the castle." So Abdullah proceeded towards the castle, and when he approached the gate, he covered himself with his clothes, pretending to answer the call of nature. The people had gone in, and the gatekeeper considered Abdullah as one of the castle's servants, addressing him saying, "O Allah's servant, enter if you wish, for I want to close the gate." Abdullah added in his story, "So I went in the castle and hid myself. When the people got inside, the gatekeeper closed the gate and hung the keys on a fixed wooden peg. I got up and took the keys and opened the gate. Some people were staying late at night with Abu Rafi for a pleasant night chat in a room of his. When his companions of nightly entertainment went away, I ascended to him, and whenever I opened a door, I closed it from inside. I said to myself, should these people discover my presence, they will not be able to catch me till I have killed him. So I reached him and found him sleeping in a dark house amidst his family. I could not recognize his location in the house. So I shouted, 'O Abu Rafi!' Abu Rafi said, 'Who is it?' I proceeded towards the source of the voice and hit him with the sword, and because of my perplexity, I could not kill him. He cried loudly, and I came out of the house and waited for a while, and then went to him again and said, 'What is this voice, O Abu Rafi?' He said, 'Woe to your mother! A man in my house has hit me with a sword.' I again hit him severely, but I did not kill him. Then I drove the point of the sword into his belly, and pressed it through, till it touched his back, and I realized that I have killed him. I then opened the doors one by one till I reached the staircase, and thinking that I had reached the ground, I stepped out and fell down and got my leg broken in a moonlit night. I tied my leg with a turban and proceeded on till I sat at the gate, and said, 'I will not go out tonight till I know that I have killed him.' So, when, early in the morning, the cock crowed, the announcer of the casualty stood on the wall saying, 'I announce the death of Abu Rafi, the merchant of Hijaz.' Thereupon I went to my companions and said, 'Let us save ourselves, for Allah has killed Abu Rafi.' So I, along with my companions, proceeded and went to the Prophet and described the whole story to him. He said, 'Stretch out your broken leg.' I stretched it out and he rubbed it and it became all right as if I had never had any ailment whatsoever." Volume 5, Book 59, number 372, narrated Al-Bara, Allah's Apostle sent Abdullah bin Atik and Abdullah bin Utbah with a group of men to Abu Rafi, to kill him. They proceeded till they approached his castle, whereupon Abdullah bin Atik said to them, "Wait here, and in the meantime I will go and see." Abdullah said later on, "I played a trick in order to enter the castle. By chance, they lost a donkey of theirs and came out carrying a flaming light to search for it. I was afraid that they would recognize me, so I covered my head and legs and pretended to answer the call to nature. The gatekeeper called, 'Whoever wants to come in, should come in before I close the gate.' So I went in and hid myself in a stall of a donkey near the gate of the castle. They took their supper with Abu Rafi and had a chat till late at night. Then they went back to their homes. When the voices vanished and I no longer detected any movement, I came out. I had seen where the gatekeeper had kept the key of the castle in a hole in the wall. I took it and unlocked the gate of the castle, saying to myself, if these people should notice me, I will run away easily. Then I locked all the doors of their houses from outside while they were inside, and ascended to Abu Rafi by a staircase. I saw the house in complete darkness with its light off, and I could not know where the man was. So I called, "Oh Abu Rafi." He replied, "Who is it?" I proceeded towards the voice and hit him. He cried loudly, but my blow was futile. Then I came to him, pretending to help him, saying with a different tone of my voice, "What is wrong with you, O Abu Rafi?" He said, "You not surprised? Woe on your mother! A man has come to me and hit me with a sword." So again I aimed at him and hit him, but the blow proved futile again, and on that Abu Rafi cried loudly and his wife got up. I came again and changed my voice as if I were a helper, and found Abu Rafi lying straight on his back, so I drove the sword into his belly and bent on it till I heard the sound of a bone break. Then I came out, filled with astonishment, and went to the staircase to descend, but I fell down from it and got my leg dislocated. I bandaged it and went to my companions limping. I said to them, "Go and tell Allah's apostle of this good news, but I will not leave this place till I hear the news of his, i.e. Abu Rafi's, death." When dawn broke, an announcer of death got over the wall and announced, "I convey to you the news of Abu Rafi's death." I got up and proceeded without feeling any pain till I caught up with my companions before they reached the Prophet, to whom I conveyed the good news. Volume 5, Book 59, number 373, narrated Ibn Abbas, on the day of Uhud. The Prophet said, "This is Gabriel holding the head of his horse and equipped with war material." Volume 5, Book 59, number 374, narrated Uqba bin Amir. Allah's apostle offered the funeral prayers of the martyrs of Uhud 8 years after their death, as if bidding farewell to the living and the dead. Then he ascended the pulpit and said, "I am your predecessor before you, and I am a witness on you, and your promised place to meet me will be Al-Hawd, i.e. the tank, on the day of resurrection, and I am, now, looking at it from this place of mine. I am not afraid that you will worship others besides Allah, but I am afraid that worldly life will tempt you and cause you to compete with each other for it." That was the last look which I cast on Allah's apostle. Volume 5, Book 59, number 375, narrated Al-Bara. We faced the pagans on that day of the Battle of Uhud, and the Prophet placed a batch of archers at a special place, and appointed Abdullah bin Jubair as their commander, and said, "Do not leave this place, and if you should see us conquering the enemy, do not leave this place, and if you should see them conquering us, do not come to help us." So, when we faced the enemy, they took to their heel till I saw their women running towards the mountain, lifting up their clothes from their legs, revealing their leg bangles. The Muslims started saying, "The booty, the booty." Abdullah bin Jubair said, "The Prophet had taken a firm promise from me not to leave this place." But his companions refused to stay. So when they refused to stay there, Allah confused them so that they could not know where to go, and they suffered 70 casualties. Abu Sufyan ascended a high place and said, "Is Muhammad present amongst the people?" The Prophet said, "Do not answer him." Abu Sufyan said, "Is the son of Abu Quafa present among the people?" The Prophet said, "Do not answer him." Abu Sufyan said, "Is the son of Al-Khattab amongst the people?" He then added, "All these people have been killed, for, were they alive, they would have replied." On that, Umar could not help saying, "You are a liar, O enemy of Allah. Allah has kept what will make you unhappy." Abu Sufyan said, "Superior may be Hubal." On that the Prophet said to his companions, "Reply to him." They asked, "What may we say?" He said, "Say, Allah is more elevated and more majestic." Abu Sufyan said, "We have the idol, Al-Uzza, whereas you have no Uzza." The Prophet said to his companions, "Reply to him." They said, "What may we say?" The Prophet said, "Say, Allah is our helper and you have no helper." Abu Sufyan said, "This day compensates for our loss at Ba'ad and, in the battle, the victory, is always undecided and shared in turns by the belligerents. You will see some of your dead men mutilated, but neither did I urge this action, nor am I sorry for it. Narrated Jabir, some people took wine in the morning of the day of Uhud and were then killed as martyrs. Volume 5, Book 59, number 376, narrated Sa'd bin Ibrahim, a meal was brought to Abdurrahman bin Auf while he was fasting. He said, Musab bin Umar was martyred, and he was better than I, yet he was shrouded in a burda, i.e. a sheet, so that, if his head was covered, his feet became naked, and if his feet were covered, his head became naked. Abdurrahman added, Hamza was martyred and he was better than one. Then worldly wealth was bestowed upon us and we were given thereof too much. We are afraid that the reward of our deeds have been given to us in this life. Abdurrahman then started weeping so much that he left the food. Volume 5, Book 59, number 377, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, on the day of the Battle of Uhud, a man came to the Prophet and said, Can you tell me where I will be if I should get martyred? The Prophet replied, In paradise. The man threw away some dates he was carrying in his hand, and fought till he was martyred. Volume 5, Book 59, number 378, narrated Kabab bin Alat, we migrated in the company of Allah's Apostle, seeking Allah's pleasure. So our reward became due and sure with Allah. Some of us have been dead without enjoying anything of their rewards, here, and one of them was Musab bin Umar who was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud, and did not leave anything except a namara, i.e. a sheet in which he was shrouded. If we covered his head with it, his feet became naked, and if we covered his feet with it, his head became naked. So the Prophet said to us, Cover his head with it and put some idkir, i.e. a kind of grass, over his feet or throw idkir over his feet. But some amongst us have got the fruits of their labor ripened, and they are collecting them. Narrated Anas, his uncle, Anas bin an-Nadr, was absent from the battle of Bad and he said, I was absent from the first battle of the Prophet, i.e. Bad battle, and if Allah should let me participate in a battle with the Prophet, Allah will see how strongly I will fight. So he encountered the day of Uhud battle. The Muslims fled and he said, O Allah, I appeal to you to excuse me for what these people, the Muslims, have done, and I am clear from what the pagans have done. Then he went forward with his sword and met Sa'd bin Mu'adh, fleeing, and asked him, Where are you going, O Sa'd? I detect a smell of paradise before Uhud. Then he proceeded on and was martyred. Nobody was able to recognize him till his sister recognized him by a mole on his body or by the tips of his fingers. He had over 80 wounds caused by stabbing, striking or shooting with arrows. Volume 5, Book 59, number 379, narrated Zayd bin Thabit, when we wrote the Holy Quran, I missed one of the verses of Surat al-Ahzab which I used to hear Allah's Apostle reciting. Then we searched for it and found it with Khuzaimah bin Thabit al-Ansari. The verse was, Among the believers are men who have been true to their covenant with Allah, of them, some have fulfilled their obligations to Allah, i.e., they have been killed in Allah's cause, and some of them are, still, waiting, 33:23, so we wrote this in its place in the Quran. Volume 5, Book 59, number 380, narrated Zayd bin Thabit, when the Prophet set out for the Battle of Uhud, some of those who had gone out with him returned. The companions of the Prophet were divided into two groups. One group said, We will fight them, i.e. the enemy, and the other group said, We will not fight them. So there came the divine revelation, O Muslims! Then what is the matter within you that you are divided into two parties about the hypocrites? Allah has cast them back to disbelief because of what they have earned. 488. On that, the Prophet said, That is Taiba, i.e. the city of Medina, which clears one from one's sins as the fire expels the impurities of silver. Volume 5, Book 59, number 381, narrated Jabir, this verse, when two of your parties almost decided to fall away, was revealed in our connection, i.e. Bani Salama and Bani Horata, and I would not have liked that, if it was not revealed, for Allah said, but Allah was their protector. 122, Volume 5, Book 59, number 382, narrated Jabir, Allah's Apostle said to me, Have you got married, O Jabir? I replied, Yes. He asked, What, a virgin or a matron? I replied, Not a virgin but a matron. He said, why did you not marry a young girl who would have fondled with you? I replied, O Allah's Apostle, my father was martyred on the day of Uhud and left 9 orphan daughters who are my 9 sisters, so I disliked to have another young girl of their age, but I sought an elderly woman who could comb their hair and look after them. The Prophet said, You have done the right thing. Volume 5, Book 59, number 383, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, that his father was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud and was in debt and left 6 orphan daughters. Jabir added, when the season of plucking the dates came, I went to Allah's Apostle and said, You know that my father was martyred on the day of Uhud, and he was heavily in debt, and I would like that the creditors should see you. The Prophet said, Go and pile every kind of dates apart. I did so and called him, Are you the Prophet? When the creditors saw him, they started claiming their debts from me then in such a harsh manner, as they had never done before. So when he saw their attitude, he went round the biggest heap of dates thrice, and then sat over it and said, O Jabir, call your companions, are you the creditors? Then he kept on measuring, and giving, to the creditors, their due, till Allah paid all the debt of my father. I would have been satisfied to retain nothing of those dates for my sisters after Allah had paid the debts of my father. But Allah saved all the heaps of dates, so that when I looked at the heap where the Prophet had been sitting, it seemed as if a single date had not been taken away thereof. Volume 5, Book 59, number 384, narrated Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, I saw Allah's Apostle on the day of the Battle of Uhud accompanied by 2 men fighting on his behalf. They were dressed in white and were fighting as bravely as possible. I had never seen them before, nor did I see them later on. Volume 5, Book 59, number 385, narrated Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, the Prophet took out a quiver of arrows for me on the day of Uhud and said, Throw arrows, let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. Volume 5, Book 59, number 386, narrated Sa'd, Allah's Apostle mentioned both his father and mother for me on the day of the Battle of Uhud. Volume 5, Book 59, number 387, narrated Ibn al-Musayyab, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas said, Allah's Apostle mentioned both his father and mother for me on the day of the Battle of Uhud. He meant when the Prophet said to Sa'd, while the latter was fighting, Let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. Volume 5, Book 59, number 388, narrated Ali, I have never heard the Prophet mentioning both his father and mother for anybody other than Sa'd. Volume 5, Book 59, number 389, narrated Ali, I have never heard the Prophet mentioning his father and mother for anybody other than Sa'd bin Malik. I heard him saying on the day of Uhud, O Sa'd, throw arrows. Let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. Volume 5, Book 59, number 390, narrated Mutamir's father, Uthman said that on the day of the Battle of Uhud, none remained with the Prophet but Talha and Sa'd. Volume 5, Book 59, number 391, narrated as Sayyid bin Yazid, I have been in the company of Abdurrahman bin Auf, Talha bin Ubaidullah, Al-Miqdad, and Sa'd, and I heard none of them narrating anything from the Prophet excepting the fact that I heard Talha narrating about the day of Uhud battle. Volume 5, Book 59, number 392, narrated Qais, I saw Talha's paralyzed hand with which he had protected the Prophet on the day of Uhud. Volume 5, Book 59, number 393, narrated Anas, when it was the day of Uhud, the people left the Prophet while Abu Talha was in front of the Prophet shielding him with his leather shield. Abu Talha was a skillful archer who used to shoot violently. He broke 2 or 3 arrow bows on that day. If a man carrying a quiver full of arrows passed by, the Prophet would say to him, scatter its contents for Abu Talha. The Prophet would raise his head to look at the enemy, whereupon Abu Talha would say, Let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. Do not raise your head, lest an arrow of the enemy should hit you. Let my neck be struck, rather than your neck. I saw Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, and Sulaim rolling up their dresses so that I saw their leg bangles while they were carrying water skins on their backs and emptying them in the mouths of the wounded people. They would return to refill them and again empty them in the mouths of the wounded people. The sword fell from Abu Talha's hand twice or thrice on that day. Volume 5, Book 59, number 394, narrated Aisha, when it was the day of Uhud, the pagans were defeated. Then Satan, Allah's curse be upon him, cried loudly, "O Allah's worshippers, beware of what is behind." On that, the front files of the Muslim forces turned their backs and started fighting with the back files. Hudayfa looked, and on seeing his father Al-Yaman, he shouted, "O Allah's worshippers, my father, my father." But by Allah, they did not stop till they killed him. Hudayfa said, "May Allah forgive you." The sub-narrator, Urwa, said, "By Allah," Hudayfa continued asking Allah's forgiveness for the killers of his father till he departed to Allah, i.e. died. Volume 5, Book 59, number 395, narrated Uthman bin Mawhab, a man came to perform the Hajj to Allah's house. Seeing some people sitting, he said, "Who are these sitting people?" Somebody said, "They are the people of Quraysh." He said, "Who is the old man?" They said, "Ibn Umar." He went to him and said, "I want to ask you about something, will you tell me about it? I ask you with the respect due to the sanctity of this sacred house, do you know that Uthman bin Affan fled on the day of Uhud?" Ibn Umar said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know that he, i.e. Uthman, was absent from the Badr battle, and did not join it?" Ibn Umar said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know that he failed to be present at the Ridwan Pledge of Allegiance, i.e. Pledge of Allegiance at Hudaybiyah, and did not witness it?" Ibn Umar replied, "Yes." He then said, "Allahu Akbar." Ibn Umar said, "Come along, I will inform you and explain to you what you have asked. As for the flight of Uthman, on the day of Uhud, I testify that Allah forgave him. As regards his absence from the Badr battle, he was married to the daughter of Allah's apostle and she was ill, so the Prophet said to him, "You will have such reward as a man who has fought the Badr battle will get, and will also have the same share of the booty." As for his absence from the Ridwan Pledge of Allegiance, if there had been anybody more respected by the Meccans than Uthman bin Affan, the Prophet would surely have sent that man instead of Uthman. So the Prophet sent him, i.e. Uthman, to Mecca, and the Ridwan Pledge of Allegiance took place after Uthman had gone to Mecca. The Prophet raised his right hand saying, "This is the hand of Uthman," and clapped it over his other hand and said, "This is for Uthman." Ibn Umar then said to the man, "Go now," after taking this information. Volume 5, Book 59, number 396, narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, the Prophet appointed Abdullah bin Jubair as the commander of the cavalry archers on the day of the Battle of Uhud. Then they returned defeated, and that what is referred to by Allah's statement and the Apostle, Muhammad, in your rear was calling you. 153, Volume 5, Book 59, number 397, narrated Salim's father, that he heard Allah's Apostle, when raising his head from bowing of the first rak'ah of the morning prayer, saying, "O Allah, curse so-and-so and so-and-so," after he had said, "Allah hears him who sends his praises to him. Our Lord, all the praises are for you. So Allah revealed, not for you, O Muhammad." Till the end of verse, they are indeed wrongdoers. 128, Salim bin Abdullah said Allah's Apostle used to invoke evil upon Safwan bin Umayyah, Suhail bin Amr and Al-Harith bin Hisham. So the verse was revealed, not for you, O Muhammad. Till the end of verse, for they are indeed wrongdoers. 128, Volume 5, Book 59, number 398, narrated Thalaba bin Abi Malik, Umar bin al-Khattab distributed woolen clothes amongst some women of Medina, and a nice woolen garment remained. Some of those who were sitting with him said, "O chief of the believers, give it to the daughter of Allah's Apostle who is with you," and by that, they meant Kulthum, the daughter of Ali. Umar said, Salat has got more right than she. Saad was amongst those Ansari women who had given the pledge of allegiance to Allah's Apostle. Umar added, "She, i.e. Salat, used to carry the filled water skins for us on the day of the Battle of Uhud." Volume 5, Book 59, number 399, narrated Jafar bin Amr bin Umayyah, I went out with Ubaydullah bin Adi al-Qayyar. When we reached Hims, i.e. a town in Syria, Ubaydullah bin Adi said to me, "Would you like to see Washer so that we may ask him about the killing of Hamza?" I replied, "Yes." Washer used to live in Hims. We inquired about him and somebody said to us, "He is that in the shade of his palace, as if he were a full water skin." So we went up to him, and when we were at a short distance from him, we greeted him and he greeted us in return. Ubaydullah was wearing his turban and Washer could not see except his eyes and feet. Ubaydullah said, "O Washer, do you know me?" Washer looked at him and then said, "No, by Allah. But I know that Adi bin al-Qiyya married a woman called Kaital, the daughter of Abu Al-Is, and she delivered a boy for him at Mecca, and I looked for a wet nurse for that child. Once, I carried that child along with his mother and then I handed him over to her, and your feet resemble that child's feet." Then, Ubaydullah uncovered his face and said, to Washer, "Will you tell us the story of the killing of Hamza?" Washer replied, "Yes, Hamza killed Tuaima bin Adi bin al-Qiyya at Bad battle, so my master, Jubair bin Mut'im said to me, if you kill Hamza in revenge for my uncle, then you will be set free." When the people set out for the battle of Uhud in the year of Ainain. Ainain is a mountain near the mountain of Uhud, and between it and Uhud there is a valley. I went out with the people for the battle. When the army aligned for the fight, Saiba came out and said, "Is there any Muslim to accept my challenge to a duel?" Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib came out and said, "O Saiba, O Ibn Ammar, the one who circumcises other ladies, do you challenge Allah and his apostle?" Then Hamza attacked and killed him, causing him to be non-extant like the bygone yesterday. I hid myself under a rock, and when he, i.e. Hamza, came near me, I threw my spear at him, driving it into his umbilicus so that it came out through his buttocks, causing him to die. When all the people returned to Mecca, I too returned with them. I stayed in Mecca till Islam spread in it, i.e. Mecca. Then I left for Taif, and when the people of Taif sent their messengers to Allah's apostle, I was told that the Prophet did not harm the messengers, so I too went out with them till I reached Allah's apostle. When he saw me, he said, "You Washer?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Was it you who killed Hamza?" I replied, "What happened is what you have been told of." He said, "Can you hide your face from me?" So I went out when Allah's apostle died, and Musaylama al-Kadhab appeared, claiming to be a prophet. I said, "I will go out to Musaylama so that I may kill him, and make amends for killing Hamza." So I went out with the people, to fight Musaylama and his followers, and then famous events took place concerning that battle. Suddenly I saw a man, i.e. Musaylama, standing near a gap in a wall. He looked like an ash-colored camel and his hair was disheveled. So I threw my spear at him, driving it into his chest in between his breasts till it passed out through his shoulders, and then an Ansari man attacked him and struck him on the head with a sword. Abdullah bin Umar said, a slave girl on the roof of a house said, "Alas! The chief of the believers, i.e. Musaylama, has been killed by a black slave." Volume 5, Book 59, Number 400, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle, pointing to his broken canine tooth, said, Allah's wrath has become severe on the people who harmed his prophet. Allah's wrath has become severe on the man who is killed by the apostle of Allah in Allah's cause. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 401, narrated Ibn Abbas. Allah's wrath became severe on him whom the prophet had killed in Allah's cause. Allah's wrath became severe on the people who caused the face of Allah's prophet to bleed. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 402, narrated Abu Hazim, that he heard Sa'al bin Sa'd being asked about the wounds of Allah's apostle saying, "By Allah, I know who washed the wounds of Allah's apostle and who poured water for washing them, and with what he was treated." Sa'al added, "Fatima, the daughter of Allah's apostle, used to wash the wounds, and Ali bin Abi Talib used to pour water from a shield." When Fatima saw that the water aggravated the bleeding, she took a piece of a mat, burnt it, and inserted its ashes into the wound so that the blood was congealed, and bleeding stopped. His canine tooth got broken on that day, and face was wounded, and his helmet was broken on his head. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 403, narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's wrath gets severe on a person killed by a prophet, and Allah's wrath became severe on him who had caused the face of Allah's apostle to bleed. Volume 5, Book 59, Number 404, narrated Aisha, regarding the holy verse, those who responded to the call of Allah and the apostle, Muhammad, after being wounded. For those of them who did good deeds and refrained from wrong, there is a great reward. 3, 172, she said to Urwa, "O my nephew, Your father, Azad Zubayr, and Abu Bakr were amongst them, i.e. those who responded to the call of Allah and the Apostle on the day of the Battle of Uhud. When Allah's Apostle suffered what he suffered on the day of Uhud and the pagans left, the Prophet was afraid that they might return. So he said, "Who will go on their, i.e. pagans, track?" He then selected 70 men from amongst them, for this purpose. The sub-narrator added, Abu Bakr and Azad Zubayr were amongst them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 405, narrated Qatada. We do not know of any tribe amongst the Arab tribes who lost more martyrs than Al-Ansar, and they will have superiority on the day of resurrection. Anas bin Malik told us that 70 from the Ansar were martyred on the day of Uhud, and 70 on the day of the Battle of Bir Ma'una, and 70 on the day of Al-Yamama. Anas added, the Battle of Bir Ma'una took place during the lifetime of Allah's Apostle, and the Battle of Al-Yamama during the Caliphate of Abu Bakr, and it was the day when Musaylama al-Kadhab was killed. Volume 5, Book 59, number 406, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah. Allah's Apostle used to shroud 2 martyrs of Uhud in one sheet and then say, which of them knew Quran more? When one of the 2 was pointed out, he would put him first in the grave. Then he said, I will be a witness for them on the day of resurrection. He ordered them to be buried with their blood on their bodies. Neither was the funeral prayer offered for them, nor were they washed. Jabir added, when my father was martyred, I started weeping and uncovering his face. The companions of the Prophet stopped me from doing so, but the Prophet did not stop me. Then the Prophet said, O Jabir, don't weep over him, for the angels kept on covering him with their wings till his body was carried away, for burial. Volume 5, Book 59, number 407, narrated Abu Musa. The Prophet said, I saw in a dream that I moved a sword and its blade got broken, and that symbolized the casualties which the believers suffered on the day of Uhud. Then I moved it again, and it became as perfect as it had been, and that symbolized the conquest of Mecca, which Allah helped us to achieve, and the union of all the believers. I, also, saw cows in the dream, and what Allah does is always beneficial. Those cows appeared to symbolize the faithful believers who were martyred on the day of Uhud. Volume 5, Book 59, number 408, narrated Kabab. We migrated with the Prophet for Allah's cause, so our reward became due with Allah. Some of us passed away, i.e. died, without enjoying anything from their reward, and one of them was Mus'ab bin Umar, who was killed, i.e. martyred, on the day of Uhud. He did not leave behind except a sheet of striped woolen cloth. If we covered his head with it, his feet became naked, and if we covered his feet with it, his head became naked. The Prophet said to us, cover his head with it and put idkir, i.e. a kind of grass, over his feet, or said, put some idkir over his feet. But some of us have got their fruits ripened, and they are collecting them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 409, narrated Anas. The Prophet said, this is a mountain that loves us and is loved by us. Volume 5, Book 59, number 410, narrated Anas bin Malik. When the mountain of Uhud appeared before Allah's Apostle, he said, this is a mountain that loves us and is loved by us. O Allah! Abraham made Mecca a sanctuary, and I have made Medina, i.e. the area between its 2 mountains, a sanctuary as well. Volume 5, Book 59, number 411, narrated Akbar. One day the Prophet went out and offered the funeral prayer for the people, i.e. martyrs, of Uhud, as he used to offer a funeral prayer for any dead person, and then, after returning, he ascended the pulpit and said, I am your predecessor before you, and I am a witness upon you, and I am looking at my tank just now, and I have been given the keys of the treasures of the world, or the keys of the world. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship others besides Allah after me, but I am afraid that you will compete with each other for the pleasures of this world. Volume 5, Book 59, number 412, narrated Abu Hurairah. The Prophet sent a Sharia of spies and appointed Asim bin Thabit, the grandfather of Asim bin Umar bin al-Khattab, as their leader. So they set out, and when they reached a place between Asfan and Mecca, they were mentioned to one of the branch tribes of Bani Hudhayl called Lihian. So, about 100 archers followed their traces till they, i.e. the archers, came to a journey station where they, i.e. Asim and his companions, had encamped and found stones of dates they had brought as journey food from Medina. The archers said, these are the dates of Medina, and followed their traces till they took them over. When Asim and his companions were not able to go ahead, they went up a high place, and their pursuers encircled them and said, "You have a covenant and a promise that if you come down to us, we will not kill any one of you." Asim said, "As for me, I will never come down on the security of an infidel. O Allah, inform your Prophet about us." So they fought with them till they killed Asim along with 7 of his companions with arrows, and there remained Kubayb, Sa'id and another man to whom they gave a promise and a covenant. So when the infidels gave them the covenant and promise, they came down. When they captured them, they opened the strings of their arrow bows and tied them with it. The third man who was with them said, "This is the first breach in the covenant," and refused to accompany them. They dragged him and tried to make him accompany them, but he refused, and they killed him. Then they proceeded on taking Kubayb and Zaid till they sold them in Mecca. The sons of Al-Harith bin Amr bin Nawfal bought Kubayb. It was Kubayb who had killed Al-Harith bin Amr on the day of Badr. Kubayb stayed with them for a while as a captive till they decided unanimously to kill him. At that time, Kubayb borrowed a razor from one of the daughters of Al-Harith to shave his pubic hair. She gave it to him. She said later on, "I was heedless of a little baby of mine, who moved towards Kubayb, and when it reached him, he put it on his thigh. When I saw it, I got scared so much that Kubayb noticed my distress while he was carrying the razor in his hand. He said, 'Are you afraid that I will kill it?' 'Allah willing, I will never do that.' Later on she used to say, 'I have never seen a captive better than Kubayb. Once I saw him eating from a bunch of grapes, although at that time no fruits were available at Mecca, and he was fettered with iron chains, and in fact, it was nothing but food bestowed upon him by Allah. So they took him out of the sanctuary of Mecca to kill him. He said, 'Allow me to offer a 2-rakat prayer.' Then he went to them and said, 'Had I not been afraid that you would think I was afraid of death, I would have prayed for a longer time.' So it was Kubayb who first set the tradition of praying 2 rakat before being executed. He then said, 'O Allah, count them one by one,' and added, 'When I am being martyred as a Muslim, I do not care in what way I receive my death for Allah's sake, because this death is in Allah's cause. If He wishes, He will bless the cut limbs.' Then Uqba bin al-Harith got up and martyred him." The narrator added, "The Quraysh, infidels, sent some people to Asim in order to bring a part of his body so that his death might be known for certain, for Asim had killed one of their chiefs on the day of Badr. But Allah sent a cloud of wasps which protected his body from their messengers who could not harm his body consequently." Volume 5, Book 59, number 413, narrated Jabir, "The person who killed Kubayb was Abu Surua, i.e. Uqba bin al-Harith." Volume 5, Book 59, number 414, narrated Abdul Aziz, Anas said, "The Prophet sent 70 men, called Al-Qurra, for some purpose. The 2 groups of Bani Sulaim called Il and Dakwan, appeared to them near a well called Bir Mayuna. The people, i.e. Al-Qurra, said, 'By Allah, we have not come to harm you, but we are passing by you on our way to do something for the Prophet.' But the infidels killed them. The Prophet therefore invoked evil upon them for a month during the morning prayer. That was the beginning of Al-Qanut, and we used not to say Qanut before that." A man asked Anas about Al-Qanut, "Is it to be said after the bowing, in the prayer, or after finishing the recitation, i.e. before bowing?" Anas replied, "No, but it is to be said after finishing the recitation." Volume 5, Book 59, number 415, narrated Anas, Allah's Apostle said Al-Qanut for 1 month after the posture of bowing, invoking evil upon some Arab tribes. Volume 5, Book 59, number 416, narrated Anas bin Malik, "The tribes of Ril, Dakwan, Usayya, and Bani Lihian asked Allah's Apostle to provide them with some men to support them against their enemy. He therefore provided them with 70 men from the Ansar whom we used to call Al-Qurra in their lifetime. They used to collect wood by daytime and pray at night. When they were at the well of Mayuna, the infidels killed them by betraying them. When this news reached the Prophet, he said Al-Qanut for 1 month in the morning prayer, invoking evil upon some of the Arab tribes, upon Ril, Dakwan, Usayya, and Bani Libyan. We used to read a verse of the Quran revealed in their connection, but later the verse was cancelled. It was, "Convey to our people on our behalf the information that we have met our Lord, and He is pleased with us, and has made us pleased." Anas bin Malik added, Allah's Prophet said Qanat for 1 month in the morning prayer, invoking evil upon some of the Arab tribes, namely, Ril, Dakwan, Usaya, and Bani Libyan. Anas added, those 70 Ansari men were killed at the well of Mauna. Volume 5, Book 59, number 417, narrated Anas, that the Prophet sent his uncle, the brother of Sulaym at the head of 70 riders. The chief of the pagans, Amir bin at-Tufail, proposed 3 suggestions to the Prophet, saying, choose one of 3 alternatives: 1. That the Bedouins will be under your command and the townspeople will be under my command; 2. Or that I will be your successor; 3. Or otherwise I will attack you with 2,000 from Bani Ghatafan. But Amir was infected with plague in the house of so-and-so. He said, shall I stay in the house of a lady from the family of so-and-so after having a swelled gland like that she-camel? Get me my horse. So he died on the back of his horse. Then Haram, the brother of Sulaym, and a lame man along with another man from so-and-so tribe, went towards the pagans, i.e. the tribe of Amir. Haram said to his companions, stay near to me, for I will go to them. If they, i.e. infidels, should give me protection, you will be near to me, and if they should kill me, then you should go back to your companions. Then Haram went to them and said, will you give me protection so as to convey the message of Allah's apostle? So he started talking to them, but they signaled to a man to kill him, and he went behind him and stabbed him with a spear. He, i.e. Haram, said, Allahu Akbar. I have succeeded, by the Lord of the Kaaba. The companion of Haram was pursued by the infidels, and then they, i.e. Haram's companions, were all killed except the lame man who was at the top of a mountain. Then Allah revealed to us a verse that was among the cancelled ones later on. It was, we have met our Lord and He is pleased with us and has made us pleased. After this event, the Prophet invoked evil on the infidels every morning for 30 days. He invoked evil upon the tribes of Ril, Dakwan, Bani Libyan, and Usaya who disobeyed Allah and His Apostle. Volume 5, Book 59, number 418, narrated Anas bin Malik, that when Haram bin Milhan, his uncle, was stabbed on the day of Bir Mayuna, he sprinkled his blood over his face and his head this way and then said, I have succeeded, by the Lord of the Kaaba. Volume 5, Book 59, number 419, narrated Aisha, Abu Bakr asked the Prophet to allow him to go out of Mecca, when he was greatly annoyed by the infidels. But the Prophet said to him, wait. Abu Bakr said, O Allah's Apostle, do you hope that you will be allowed to migrate? Allah's Apostle replied, I hope so. So Abu Bakr waited for him till one day Allah's Apostle came at noontime and addressed him saying, let whoever is present with you now leave you. Abu Bakr said, none is present but my 2 daughters. The Prophet said, have you noticed that I have been allowed to go out to migrate? Abu Bakr said, O Allah's Apostle, I would like to accompany you. The Prophet said, you will accompany me. Abu Bakr said, O Allah's Apostle, I have got 2 she-camels which I had prepared and kept ready for our going out. So he gave one of the 2 she-camels to the Prophet and it was Al-Jadeh. They both rode and proceeded till they reached the cave at the mountain of Thor where they hid themselves. Amir bin Fuhaira was the slave of Abdullah bin al-Tufail bin Sakbara, Aisha's brother from her mother's side. Abu Bakr had a milch she-camel. Amir used to go with it, i.e. the milch she-camel, in the afternoon and come back to them before noon by setting out towards them in the early morning when it was still dark, and then he would take it to the pasture so that none of the shepherds would be aware of his job. When the Prophet and Abu Bakr went away from the cave, he, i.e. Amir, too went along with them, and they both used to make him ride at the back of their camels in turns till they reached Medina. Amir bin Fuhaira was martyred on the day of Bir Mayuna. Narrated, when those Muslims at Bir Mayuna were martyred and Amr bin Umayyah ad-Damri was taken prisoner, Amir bin at-Tufail, pointing at a killed person, asked Amr, who is this? Amr bin Umayyah said to him, he is Amir bin Fuhaira. Amir bin at-Tufail said, I saw him lifted to the sky after he was killed till I saw the sky between him and the earth, and then he was brought down upon the earth. Then the news of the killed Muslims reached the Prophet and he announced the news of their death saying, your companions of Bir Mayuna have been killed, and they have asked their Lord saying, O our Lord, Inform our brothers about us as we are pleased with you and you are pleased with us. So Allah informed them, i.e. the Prophet and his companions, about them, i.e. martyrs of Bir Mauna. On that day, Urwa bin Asma bin as-Salt, who was one of them, was killed, and Urwa bin Az Zubayr was named after Urwa bin Asma, and Mundir bin Az Zubayr was named after Mundir bin Amr, who had also been martyred on that day. Volume 5, Book 59, number 420, narrated Anas, the Prophet said Al-Qanat after bowing, i.e. Aruku, for 1 month, invoking evil upon the tribes of Ril and Dakwan. He used to say, Usayr disobeyed Allah and his apostle. Volume 5, Book 59, number 421, narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet invoked evil upon those people who killed his companions at Bir Mauna for 30 days, in the morning prayer. He invoked evil upon tribes of Ril, Lihian, and Usayr who disobeyed Allah and his apostle. Allah revealed a Quranic verse to his Prophet regarding those who had been killed, i.e. the Muslims killed at Bir Mauna, and we recited the verse till later it was cancelled. The verse was, Inform our people that we have met our Lord, and he is pleased with us, and we are pleased with him. Volume 5, Book 59, number 422, narrated Asim Alawal, I asked Anas bin Malik regarding Al-Qanat during the prayer. Anas replied, Yes, Al-Qanat was said by the Prophet in the prayer. I said, Is it before bowing or after bowing? Anas replied, It was said, before bowing. I said, So-and-so informed me that you told him that it was said after bowing. Anas replied, He was mistaken, for Allah's apostle said Al-Qanat after bowing for 1 month. The Prophet had sent some people called Al-Qurra who were 70 in number, to some pagan people who had concluded a peace treaty with Allah's apostle. But those who had concluded the treaty with Allah's apostle violated the treaty, and martyred all the 70 men. So Allah's apostle said Al-Qanat after bowing, in the prayer, for 1 month, invoking evil upon them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 423, narrated Ibn Umar, that the Prophet inspected him on the day of Uhud while he was 14 years old, and the Prophet did not allow him to take part in the battle. He was inspected again by the Prophet on the day of Al-Khandak, i.e. Battle of the Trench, while he was 15 years old, and the Prophet allowed him to take part in the battle. Volume 5, Book 59, number 424, narrated Sa'al bin Sa'd, we were with Allah's apostle in the trench, and some were digging the trench while we were carrying the earth on our shoulders. Allah's apostle said, O Allah! There is no life except the life of the hereafter, so please forgive the emigrants and the Ansar. Volume 5, Book 59, number 425, narrated Anas, Allah's apostle went out towards the Khandak, i.e. trench, and saw the emigrants and the Ansar digging the trench in the cold morning. They had no slaves to do that work for them. When the Prophet saw their hardship and hunger, he said, O Allah! The real life is the life of the hereafter, so please forgive Ansar and the emigrants. They said in reply to him, We are those who have given the pledge of allegiances to Muhammad for to observe jihad as long as we live. Volume 5, Book 59, number 426, narrated Anas, Al-Muhajirun, i.e. the emigrants, and the Ansar were digging the trench around Medina and were carrying the earth on their backs while saying, We are those who have given the pledge of allegiance to Muhammad for Islam as long as we live. The Prophet said in reply to their saying, O Allah! There is no goodness except the goodness of the hereafter, so please grant your blessing to the Ansar and the emigrants. The people used to bring a handful of barley, and a meal used to be prepared thereof by cooking it with a cooking material, i.e. oil, fat and butter having a change in color and smell, and it used to be presented to the people, i.e. workers, who were hungry, and it used to stick to their throats and had a nasty smell. Volume 5, Book 59, number 427, narrated Jabir, we were digging the trench, on the day of Al-Khandak, i.e. trench, and we came across a big solid rock. We went to the Prophet and said, Here is a rock appearing across the trench. He said, I am coming down. Then he got up, and a stone was tied to his belly for we had not eaten anything for 3 days. So the Prophet took the spade and struck the big solid rock and it became like sand. I said, O Allah's apostle! Allow me to go home. When the Prophet allowed me, I said to my wife, I saw the Prophet in a state that I cannot treat lightly. Have you got something for him to eat? She replied, I have barley and a she-goat. So I slaughtered the she-kid and she ground the barley, then we put the meat in the earthenware cooking pot. Then I came to the Prophet when the dough had become soft and fermented and, the meat in, the pot over the stone trivet had nearly been well cooked, and said, I have got a little food prepared, so get up O Allah's Apostle, you and 1 or 2 men along with you, for the food. The Prophet asked, how much is that food? I told him about it. He said, it is abundant and good. Tell your wife not to remove the earthenware pot from the fire and not to take out any bread from the oven till I reach there. Then he said, to all his companions, get up. So the muhajirun, i.e. emigrants, and the ansar got up. When I came to my wife, I said, Allah's mercy be upon you. The Prophet came along with the muhajirin and the ansar and those who were present with them. She said, did the Prophet ask you, how much food you had? I replied, yes. Then the Prophet said, enter and do not throng. The Prophet started cutting the bread into pieces and put the cooked meat over it. He covered the earthenware pot and the oven whenever he took something out of them. He would give the food to his companions and take the meat out of the pot. He went on cutting the bread and scooping the meat for his companions till they all ate their fill, and even then, some food remained. Then the Prophet said, to my wife, eat and present to others as the people are struck with hunger. Volume 5, Book 59, number 428, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, when the trench was dug, I saw the Prophet in the state of severe hunger. So I returned to my wife and said, have you got anything to eat, for I have seen Allah's Apostle in a state of severe hunger. She brought out for me a bag containing 1 seah of barley, and we had a domestic she-animal, i.e. a kid, which I slaughtered then, and my wife ground the barley and she finished at the time I finished my job, i.e. slaughtering the kid. Then I cut the meat into pieces and put it in an earthenware cooking pot, and returned to Allah's Apostle. My wife said, do not disgrace me in front of Allah's Apostle and those who are with him. So I went to him and said to him secretly, O Allah's Apostle, I have slaughtered a she-animal, i.e. kid, of ours, and we have ground a seah of barley which was with us. So please come, you and another person along with you. The Prophet raised his voice and said, O people of Trench, Jabir has prepared a meal, so let us go. Allah's Apostle said to me, don't put down your earthenware meat pot from the fireplace, or bake your dough till I come. So I came to my house, and Allah's Apostle too came, proceeding before the people. When I came to my wife, she said, may Allah do so and so to you. I said, I have told the Prophet of what you said. Then she brought out to him, i.e. the Prophet, the dough, and he spat in it and invoked for Allah's blessings in it. Then he proceeded towards our earthenware meat pot and spat in it and invoked for Allah's blessings in it. Then he said to my wife, call a lady baker to bake along with you and keep on taking out scoops from your earthenware meat pot, and do not put it down from its fireplace. They were 1,000 who took their meals, and by Allah they all ate, and when they left the food and went away, our earthenware pot was still bubbling, full of meat, as if it had not decreased, and our dough was still being baked as if nothing had been taken from it. Volume 5, Book 59, number 429, narrated Aisha, as regards the following Quranic verse, when they came on you from above and from below you, from east and west of the valley, and when the eyes grew wild and the hearts reached up to the throats. 33:10, that happened on the day of Al-Khandaq, i.e. Trench. Volume 5, Book 59, number 430, narrated Al-Bara, the Prophet was carrying earth on the day of Al-Khandaq till his abdomen was fully covered with dust, and he was saying, by Allah, without Allah we would not have been guided, neither would we have given in charity, nor would we have prayed. So, O Allah, please send Sakinah, i.e. calmness, upon us, and make our feet firm if we meet the enemy, as the enemy have rebelled against us, and if they intended affliction, i.e. want to frighten us and fight against us, then we would not flee but withstand them. The Prophet used to raise his voice saying, Abaina, Abaina, i.e. would not, we would not. Volume 5, Book 59, number 431, narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet said, I have been made victorious by As-Saba, i.e. an easterly wind, and the Ad nation was destroyed by Ad-Daba, i.e. a westerly wind. Volume 5, Book 59, number 432, narrated Al-Bara, when it was the day of Al-Azab, i.e. the clans, and Allah's Apostle dug the trench, I saw him carrying earth out of the trench till dust made the skin of his abdomen out of my sight, and he was a hairy man. I heard him reciting the poetic verses composed by Ibn Rawaha while he was carrying the earth, O Allah! Without you we would not have been guided, nor would we have given in charity, nor would we have prayed. So, O Allah, please send sakina, i.e. calmness, upon us and make our feet firm if we meet the enemy, as they have rebelled against us. And if they intend affliction, i.e. want to frighten us, and fight against us, then we would not flee but withstand them. The Prophet would then prolong his voice at the last words. Volume 5, Book 59, number 433, narrated Ibn Umar, the first day, i.e. Ghazwa, I participated in, was the day of Al-Khandak, i.e. trench. Volume 5, Book 59, number 434, narrated Ikrimah bin Khalid, Ibn Umar said, I went to Hafsa while water was dribbling from her twined braids. I said, the condition of the people is as you see, and no authority has been given to me. Hafsa said, to me, go to them, and as they, i.e. the people, waiting for you, and I am afraid your absence from them will produce division amongst them. So Hafsa did not leave Ibn Umar till we went to them. When the people differed, Muawiyah addressed the people saying, if anybody wants to say anything in this matter of the caliphate, he should show up and not conceal himself, for we are more rightful to be a caliph than he and his father. On that, Habib bin Masalama said to Ibn Umar, why don't you reply to him, i.e. Muawiyah? Abdullah bin Umar said, I untied my garment that was going round my back and legs while I was sitting and was about to say, he who fought against you and against your father for the sake of Islam, is more rightful to be a caliph, but I was afraid that my statement might produce differences amongst the people and cause bloodshed, and my statement might be interpreted not as I intended. So I kept quiet, remembering what Allah has prepared in the gardens of paradise, for those who are patient and prefer the hereafter to this worldly life. Habib said, you did what kept you safe and secure, i.e. you were wise in doing so. Volume 5, Book 59, number 435, narrated Sulayman bin Surd, on the day of Al-Azab, i.e. clans, the Prophet said, after this battle, we will go to attack them, i.e. the infidels, and they will not come to attack us. Volume 5, Book 59, number 436, narrated Sulayman bin Surd, when the clans were driven away, I heard the Prophet saying, from now onwards we will go to attack them, i.e. the infidels, and they will not come to attack us, but we will go to them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 437, narrated Ali, on the day of Al-Khandak, i.e. trench, the Prophet said, let Allah fill their, i.e. the infidels, houses and graves with fire just as they have prevented us from offering the middle prayer, i.e. Asr prayer, till the sun had set. Volume 5, Book 59, number 438, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Umar bin al-Khattab came on the day of Al-Khandak after the sun had set and he was abusing the infidels of Quraysh saying, O Allah's apostle! I was unable to offer the Asr prayer till the sun was about to set. The Prophet said, by Allah, I have not offered this, i.e. Asr prayer. So we came down along with the Prophet to Buthan where he performed ablution for the prayer and then we performed the ablution for it. Then he offered the Asr prayer after the sun had set, and after it he offered the Maghrib prayer. Volume 5, Book 59, number 439, narrated Jabir, on the day of Al-Azab, i.e. clans, Allah's apostle said, who will bring us the news of the people, i.e. the clans of Quraysh infidels? Az Zubayr said, the Prophet again said, who will bring us the news of the people? Az Zubayr said, the Prophet again said, who will bring us the news of the people? Az Zubayr said, the Prophet then said, every prophet has his Hawari, i.e. disciple special helper, my disciple is Az Zubayr. Volume 5, Book 59, number 440, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle used to say, none has the right to be worshipped except Allah alone, who honored his warriors and made his slave victorious, and he, alone, defeated the infidel clans, so there is nothing after him. Volume 5, Book 59, number 441, narrated Abdullah bin Abi Awfa, Allah's apostle invoked evil upon the clans saying, Allah, the revealer of the holy book, i.e. the Quran, the quick taker of the accounts. Please defeat the clans. O Allah! Defeat them and shake them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 442, narrated Abdullah, whenever Allah's apostle returned from a Ghazwa, Hajj or Umrah, he used to start, saying, Allahu Akbar, thrice, and then he would say, none has the right to be worshipped except Allah alone, who has no partners. To him belongs the kingdom, all praises are for him, and he is able to do all things, i.e. omnipotent. We are returning with repentance to Allah, worshipping, prostrating, and praising our Lord. Allah has fulfilled his promise, made his slave victorious, and he, alone, defeated the clans of infidels. Volume 5, Book 59, number 443, narrated, Aisha, when the Prophet returned from Al-Kandak, i.e. trench, and laid down his arms and took a bath, Gabriel came and said to the Prophet, you have laid down your arms. By Allah, we angels have not laid them down yet. So set out for them. The Prophet said, where to go? Gabriel said, towards this side, pointing towards Banu Qurayza. So the Prophet went out towards them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 444, narrated Anas, as if I am just now looking at the dust rising in the street of Banu Ghanm, in Medina, because of the marching of Gabriel's regiment when Allah's apostles set out to Banu Qurayza, to attack them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 445, narrated Ibn Umar, on the day of Al-Azab, i.e. clans, the Prophet said, none of you Muslims should offer the Asr prayer but at Banu Qurayza's place. The Asr prayer became due for some of them on the way. Some of those said, we will not offer it till we reach it, the place of Banu Qurayza, while some others said, no, we will pray at this spot, for the Prophet did not mean that for us. Later on it was mentioned to the Prophet and he did not berate any of the two groups. Volume 5, Book 59, number 446, narrated Anas, some of the Ansar used to present date palm trees to the Prophet till Banu Qurayza and Banu and Nadir were conquered, then he returned to the people their date palms. My people ordered me to ask the Prophet to return some or all the date palms they had given to him, but the Prophet had given those trees to Umayman. On that, Umayman came and put the garment around my neck and said, no, by him except whom none has the right to be worshipped, he will not return those trees to you as he, i.e. the Prophet, has given them to me. The Prophet said to her, return those trees and I will give you so much instead of them. But she kept on refusing, saying, no, by Allah, till he gave her 10 times the number of her date palms. Volume 5, Book 59, number 447, narrated Abu Said al-Khudri, the people of Banu Qurayza agreed to accept the verdict of Sa'd bin Mu'adh. So the Prophet sent for Sa'd, and the latter came, riding a donkey, and when he approached the mosque, the Prophet said to the Ansar, get up for your chief or for the best among you. Then the Prophet said to Sa'd, these, i.e. Banu Qurayza, have agreed to accept your verdict. Sa'd said, kill their men, warriors, and take their offspring as captives. On that the Prophet said, you have judged according to Allah's judgment, or said, according to the king's judgment. Volume 5, Book 59, number 448, narrated Aisha, Sa'd was wounded on the day of Kandak, i.e. trench, when a man from Quraysh, called Hibban bin al-Araka hit him, with an arrow. The man was Hibban bin Qais from the tribe of Bani Maiz bin Amir bin Lu'ay, who shot an arrow at Sa'd's medial arm vein, or main artery of the arm. The Prophet pitched a tent for Sa'd in the mosque so that he might be near to the Prophet to visit. When the Prophet returned from the battle of Al-Kandak, i.e. trench, and laid down his arms and took a bath, Gabriel came to him while he, i.e. Gabriel, was shaking the dust off his head, and said, you have laid down the arms. By Allah, I have not laid them down. Go out to them, to attack them. The Prophet said, where? Gabriel pointed towards Bani Qurayza. So Allah's apostle went to them, i.e. Banu Qurayza, i.e. besieged them. They then surrendered to the Prophet's judgment, but he directed them to Sa'd to give his verdict concerning them. Sa'd said, I give my judgment that their warriors should be killed, their women and children should be taken as captives, and their properties distributed. Narrated Hisham, my father informed me that, Aisha said, Sa'd said, O Allah, you know that there is nothing more beloved to me than to fight in your cause against those who disbelieved your apostle and turned him out of Mecca. O Allah, I think you have put to an end the fight between us and them, i.e. Quraysh infidels. And if there still remains any fight with the Quraysh infidels, then keep me alive till I fight against them for your sake. But if you have brought the war to an end, then let this wound burst and cause my death thereby. So blood gushed from the wound. There was a tent in the mosque belonging to Banu Ghifar who were surprised by the blood flowing towards them. They said, "O people of the tent, what is this thing which is coming to us from your side?" Behold, blood was flowing profusely out of Sa'd's wound. Sa'd then died because of that. Volume 5, Book 59, number 449, narrated Al-Bara, the Prophet said to Hassan, "Abuse them with your poems, and Gabriel is with you, i.e., supports you." Through another group of sub-narrators, Al-Bara bin Azib said, "On the day of Qasas, besiege, Allah's apostle said to Hassan bin Thabit, abuse them with your poems, and Gabriel is with you, i.e. supports you." Volume 5, Book 59, number 450, narrated Abu Burda, Abu Musa said, "We went out in the company of the Prophet for a ghazwa, and we were 6 persons having 1 camel which we rode in rotation. So, due to excessive walking, our feet became thin, and my feet became thin, and my nail dropped, and we used to wrap our feet with the pieces of cloth, and for this reason, the ghazwa was named Dat Eureka as we wrapped our feet with rags." When Abu Musa narrated this hadith, he felt regretful to do so and said, as if he disliked to have disclosed a good deed of his. Volume 5, Book 59, number 451, narrated Saleh bin Kawat, concerning those who witnessed the fear prayer that was performed in the Battle of Dat Eureka in the company of Allah's Apostle. One batch lined up behind him while another batch lined up, facing the enemy. The Prophet led the batch that was with him in 1 rak'ah, and he stayed in the standing posture while that batch completed their 2 rakat prayer by themselves and went away, lining in the face of the enemy, while the other batch came and he, i.e. the Prophet, offered his remaining rak'ah with them, and then kept on sitting till they completed their prayer by themselves, and he then finished his prayer with taslim along with them. Narrated Ibn Az Zubayr, Jabir said, "We were with the Prophet at Nakhl, and then he mentioned the fear prayer." Narrated Al-Qasim bin Muhammad, the Prophet offered the fear prayer in the Ghazwa of Banu Anmar. Volume 5, Book 59, number 452, narrated Sa'al bin Abi Hathma, describing the fear prayer. The Imam stands up facing the Qibla, and 1 batch of them, i.e. the army, out of the 2, prays along with him and the other batch faces the enemy. The Imam offers 1 rak'ah with the first batch, they themselves stand up alone and offer 1 bowing and 2 prostrations while they are still in their place, and then go away to relieve the second batch, and the second batch comes, and takes the place of the first batch in the prayer behind the Imam, and he offers the second rak'ah with them. So he completes his 2 rakat, and then the second batch bows and prostrates 2 prostrations, i.e. complete their second rak'ah, and thus all complete their prayer. Volume 5, Book 59, number 453, narrated Saleh bin Hathma, the Prophet said as above, Hadith 452. Volume 5, Book 59, number 454, narrated Saleh bin Kawat, Sa'al said as above, Hadith 452. Volume 5, Book 59, number 455, narrated Ibn Umar, I took part in a ghazwa towards Najd along with Allah's Apostle, and we clashed with the enemy, and we lined up for them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 456, narrated Abdullah bin Umar, Allah's Apostle led the fear prayer with one of the 2 batches of the army while the other batch faced the enemy. Then the first batch went away and took places of their companions, i.e. second batch, and the second batch came and he led his second rak'ah with them. Then he, i.e. the Prophet, finished his prayer with taslim, and then each of the 2 batches got up and completed their remaining 1 rak'ah. Volume 5, Book 59, number 457, narrated Sinan and Abu Salama, Jabir mentioned that he had participated in a ghazwa towards Najd in the company of Allah's Apostle. Volume 5, Book 59, number 458, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, that he fought in a ghazwa towards Najd along with Allah's Apostle, and when Allah's Apostle returned, he too returned along with him. The time of the afternoon nap overtook them when they were in a valley full of thorny trees. Allah's Apostle dismounted and the people dispersed amongst the thorny trees, seeking the shade of the trees. Allah's Apostle took shelter under a samura tree and hung his sword on it. We slept for a while when Allah's Apostle suddenly called us, and we went to him, to find a Bedouin sitting with him. Allah's Apostle said, "This Bedouin took my sword out of its sheath while I was asleep. When I woke up, the naked sword was in his hand, and he said to me, 'Who can save you from me?' I replied, 'Allah.' Now here he is sitting." Allah's Apostle did not punish him for that. Through another group of narrators, Jabir said, "We were in the company of the Prophet during the battle of Dat Eureka, and we came across a shady tree and we left it for the Prophet to take rest under its shade. A man from the pagans came while the Prophet's sword was hanging on the tree. He took it out of its sheath secretly and said to the Prophet, 'Are you afraid of me?' The Prophet said, 'No.' He said, 'Who can save you from me?' The Prophet said, 'Allah.' The companions of the Prophet threatened him. Then the Iqamah for the prayer was announced and the Prophet offered a 2 rakat fear prayer with one of the 2 batches, and that batch went aside and he offered 2 rak'ati with the other batch. So the Prophet offered 4 rakat but the people offered 2 rakat only." The sub-narrator, Abu Bishr added, "The man was Ghurav bin al-Harith and the battle was waged against Muharid Kasafa." Jabir added, "We were with the Prophet at Nakhl and he offered the fear prayer." Abu Hurairah said, "I offered the fear prayer with the Prophet during the Ghazwa, i.e. the battle of Najd." Abu Hurairah came to the Prophet during the day of Khaybar. Volume 5, Book 59, number 459, narrated Ibn Muhayriz, "I entered the mosque and saw Abu Said al-Khudri and sat beside him and asked him about al-azl, i.e. coitus interruptus. Abu Said said, "We went out with Allah's apostle for the Ghazwa of Banu al-Mustalik and we received captives from among the Arab captives and we desired women and celibacy became hard on us and we loved to do coitus interruptus. So when we intended to do coitus interruptus, we said, 'How can we do coitus interruptus before asking Allah's apostle who is present among us?' We asked him about it and he said, 'It is better for you not to do so, for if any soul, till the day of resurrection, is predestined to exist, it will exist.'" Volume 5, Book 59, number 460, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, "We took part in the Ghazwa of Najd along with Allah's apostle and when the time for the afternoon rest approached, while he was in a valley with plenty of thorny trees, he dismounted under a tree and rested in its shade and hung his sword on it. The people dispersed amongst the trees in order to have shade. While we were in this state, Allah's apostle called us and we came and found a Bedouin sitting in front of him. The Prophet said, 'This Bedouin came to me while I was asleep, and he took my sword stealthily. I woke up while he was standing by my head, holding my sword without its sheath. He said, "Who will save you from me?" I replied, "Allah." So he sheathed it, i.e. the sword, and sat down, and here he is. But Allah's apostle did not punish him. Volume 5, Book 59, number 461, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, "I saw the Prophet offering his Nawafil prayer on his mount facing the east during the Ghazwa of Anmar." Volume 5, Book 59, number 462, narrated Aisha, "Whenever Allah's apostle intended to go on a journey, he used to draw lots amongst his wives, and Allah's apostle used to take with him the one on whom lot fell. He drew lots amongst us during one of the Ghazwat which he fought. The lot fell on me and so I proceeded with Allah's apostle after Allah's order of veiling, the women, had been revealed. I was carried, on the back of a camel, in my howdah and carried down while still in it, when we came to a halt. So we went on till Allah's apostle had finished from that Ghazwa of his and returned. When we approached the city of Medina, he announced at night that it was time for departure. So when they announced the news of departure, I got up and went away from the army camps, and after finishing from the call of nature, I came back to my riding animal. I touched my chest to find that my necklace, which was made of zifar beads, i.e. Yemenite beads partly black and partly white, was missing. So I returned to look for my necklace and my search for it detained me. In the meanwhile, the people who used to carry me on my camel, came and took my howdah and put it on the back of my camel on which I used to ride, as they considered that I was in it. In those days women were light in weight for they did not get fat, and flesh did not cover their bodies in abundance as they used to eat only a little food. Those people therefore, disregarded the lightness of the howdah while lifting and carrying it, and at that time I was still a young girl. They made the camel rise and all of them left, along with it. I found my necklace after the army had gone. Then I came to their camping place to find no call maker of them, nor one who would respond to the call. So I intended to go to the place where I used to stay, thinking that they would miss me and come back to me, in my search. While I was sitting in my resting place, I was overwhelmed by sleep and slept. Safwan bin al-Mu'attal as-Salami ad-Dakwani was behind the army. When he reached my place in the morning, he saw the figure of a sleeping person, and he recognized me on seeing me as he had seen me before the order of compulsory veiling was prescribed. So I woke up when he recited istirja, i.e., inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, as soon as he recognized me. I veiled my face with my head cover at once, and by Allah, we did not speak a single word, and I did not hear him saying any word besides his istirja. He dismounted from his camel and made it kneel down, putting his leg on its front legs, and then I got up and rode on it. Then he set out leading the camel that was carrying me till we overtook the army in the extreme heat of midday while they were at a halt, taking a rest. Because of the event, some people brought destruction upon themselves, and the one who spread the ifk, i.e. slander, more, was Abdullah bin Ubay ibn Salul. Urwa said, the people propagated the slander and talked about it in his, i.e. Abdullah's, presence, and he confirmed it and listened to it and asked about it to let it prevail. Urwa also added, none was mentioned as members of the slanderous group besides Abdullah, except Hassan bin Thabit and Mr. bin Uthata and Hamna bint Jash, along with others about whom I have no knowledge, but they were a group as Allah said. It is said that the one who carried most of the slander was Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. Urwa added, Aisha disliked to have Hassan abused in her presence, and she used to say, it was he who said, my father and his, i.e. my father's, father and my honor are all for the protection of Muhammad's honor from you. Aisha added, after we returned to Medina, I became ill for a month. The people were propagating the forged statements of the slanderers while I was unaware of anything of all that, but I felt that in my present ailment, I was not receiving the same kindness from Allah's apostle as I used to receive when I got sick. But now, Allah's apostle would only come, greet me and say, how is that, lady? And leave. That roused my doubts, but I did not discover the evil, i.e. slander, till I went out after my convalescence. I went out with Mr. to Al-Manasi, where we used to answer the call of nature, and we used not to go out, to answer the call of nature, except at night, and that was before we had latrines near our houses. And this habit of our concerning evacuating the bowels, was similar to the habits of the old Arabs living in the deserts, for it would be troublesome for us to take latrines near our houses. So I am Mr. who was the daughter of Abu Rum bin al-Muttalib bin Abd Manaf, whose mother was the daughter of Saka bin Amir and the aunt of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and whose son was Mr. bin Uthata bin Abbas bin al-Muttalib, went out. I am Mr. returned to my house after we finished answering the call of nature. And Mr. stumbled by getting her foot entangled in her covering sheet, and on that she said, let Mr. be ruined. I said, what a hard word you have said. Do you abuse a man who took part in the battle of Ba'ad? On that she said, oh you hunter. Didn't you hear what he, i.e. Mr., said? I said, what did he say? Then she told me the slander of the people of Ifk. So my ailment was aggravated, and when I reached my home, Allah's apostle came to me, and after greeting me, said, how is that, lady? I said, will you allow me to go to my parents, as I wanted to be sure about the news through them. Allah's apostle allowed me, and I went to my parents, and asked my mother, O mother, what are the people talking about? She said, O my daughter, don't worry, for scarcely is there a charming woman who is loved by her husband and whose husband has other wives besides herself that they, i.e. women, would find faults with her. I said, Subhanallah. I testify the uniqueness of Allah. Are the people really talking in this way? I kept on weeping that night till dawn. I could neither stop weeping nor sleep. Then in the morning again, I kept on weeping. When the divine inspiration was delayed, Allah's apostle called Ali bin Abi Talib and Usama bin Zaid to ask and consult them about divorcing me. Usama bin Zaid said what he knew of my innocence, and the respect he preserved in himself for me. Usama said, O Allah's apostle, she is your wife and we do not know anything except good about her. Ali bin Abi Talib said, O Allah's apostle, Allah does not put you in difficulty and there are plenty of women other than she, yet, ask the maidservant who will tell you the truth. On that Allah's apostle called Ba'a, i.e. the maidservant, and said, O Ba'a, did you ever see anything which aroused your suspicion? Ba'a said to him, by him who has sent you with the truth. I have never seen anything in her, i.e. Aisha, which I would conceal, except that she is a young girl who sleeps leaving the dough of her family exposed so that the domestic goats come and eat it. So, On that day, Allah's apostle got up on the pulpit and complained about Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul before his companions, saying, "O you Muslims! Who will relieve me from that man who has hurt me with his evil statement about my family? By Allah, I know nothing except good about my family, and they have blamed a man about whom I know nothing except good, and he used never to enter my home except with me." Sa'd bin Mu'adh, the brother of Banu Abd al-Ashal, got up and said, "O Allah's apostle! I will relieve you from him. If he is from the tribe of Al-Aus, then I will chop his head off, and if he is from our brothers, i.e. Al-Khazraj, then order us, and we will fulfill your order." On that, a man from Al-Khazraj got up. Hassan, his cousin, was from his branch tribe, and he was Sa'd bin Ubadah, chief of Al-Khazraj. Before this incident, he was a pious man, but his love for his tribe goaded him into saying to Sa'd bin Mu'adh, "By Allah, you have told a lie, you shall not and cannot kill him. If he belonged to your people, you would not wish him to be killed." On that, Uzayd bin Hudayr, who was the cousin of Sa'd bin Mu'adh, got up and said to Sa'd bin Ubadah, "By Allah, you are a liar. We will surely kill him, and you are a hypocrite arguing on the behalf of hypocrites." On this, the two tribes of Al-Aus and Al-Khazraj got so much excited that they were about to fight while Allah's apostle was standing on the pulpit. Allah's apostle kept on quietening them till they became silent, and so did he. All that day I kept on weeping with my tears never ceasing, and I could never sleep. In the morning my parents were with me, and I wept for 2 nights and a day with my tears never ceasing, and I could never sleep till I thought that my liver would burst from weeping. So, while my parents were sitting with me and I was weeping, an Ansari woman asked me to grant her admittance. I allowed her to come in, and when she came in, she sat down and started weeping with me. While we were in this state, Allah's apostle came, greeted us and sat down. He had never sat with me since that day of the slander. A month had elapsed and no divine inspiration came to him about my case. Allah's apostle then recited Tashahhud and then said, "Amma Bodu, O Aisha, I have been informed so-and-so about you. If you are innocent, then soon Allah will reveal your innocence, and if you have committed a sin, then repent to Allah and ask Him for forgiveness, for when a slave confesses his sins and asks Allah for forgiveness, Allah accepts his repentance." When Allah's apostle finished his speech, my tears ceased flowing completely, that I no longer felt a single drop of tear flowing. I said to my father, "Reply to Allah's apostle on my behalf concerning what he has said." My father said, "By Allah, I do not know what to say to Allah's apostle." Then I said to my mother, "Reply to Allah's apostle on my behalf concerning what he has said." She said, "By Allah, I do not know what to say to Allah's apostle." In spite of the fact that I was a young girl and had a little knowledge of Quran, I said, "By Allah, no doubt I know that you heard this slanderous speech so that it has been planted in your hearts, i.e. minds, and you have taken it as a truth. Now if I tell you that I am innocent, you will not believe me, and if confess to you about it, and Allah knows that I am innocent, you will surely believe me. By Allah, I find no similitude for me and you except that of Joseph's father when he said, 'For me, patience in the most fitting against that which you assert, it is Allah, alone, whose help can be sought.' Then I turned to the other side and lay on my bed, and Allah knew then that I was innocent and hoped that Allah would reveal my innocence. But, by Allah, I never thought that Allah would reveal about my case divine inspiration that would be recited forever, as I considered myself too unworthy to be talked of by Allah with something of my concern, but I hoped that Allah's apostle might have a dream in which Allah would prove my innocence. But, by Allah, before Allah's apostle left his seat and before any of the household left, the divine inspiration came to Allah's apostle. So there overtook him the same hard condition which used to overtake him, when he used to be inspired divinely. The sweat was dropping from his body like pearls, though it was a wintry day, and that was because of the weighty statement which was being revealed to him. When that state of Allah's apostle was over, he got up smiling, and the first word he said was, "O Aisha, Allah has declared your innocence." Then my mother said to me, "Get up and go to him, i.e. Allah's apostle." I replied, "By Allah, I will not go to him, and I praise none but Allah." So Allah revealed the 10 verses, "Verily, they who spread the slander are a gang among you." 24:11-20, Allah revealed those Quranic verses to declare my innocence. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who used to disburse money for Mr. bin Uthata because of his relationship to him and his poverty, said, "By Allah, I will never give to Mr. bin Uthata anything after what he has said about Aisha." Then Allah revealed, "And let not those among you who are good and wealthy swear not to give any sort of help to their kinsmen, those in need, and those who have left their homes for Allah's cause, let them pardon and forgive. Do you not love that Allah should forgive you? And Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful." 24:22, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, "Yes, by Allah, I would like that Allah forgive me," and went on giving Mr. the money he used to give him before. He also added, "By Allah, I will never deprive him of it at all." Aisha further said, Allah's Apostle also asked Zainab bint Jahsh, i.e. his wife, about my case. He said to Zainab, "What do you know and what did you see?" She replied, "O Allah's Apostle, I refrain from claiming falsely that I have heard or seen anything. By Allah, I know nothing except good about Aisha. From amongst the wives of the Prophet, Zainab was my peer, in beauty and in the love she received from the Prophet, but Allah saved her from that evil because of her piety. Her sister Hamna started struggling on her behalf, and she was destroyed along with those who were destroyed." The man who was blamed said, "Subhanallah. By him in whose hand my soul is, I have never uncovered the cover, i.e. veil, of any female." Later on the man was martyred in Allah's cause. Volume 5, Book 59, number 463, narrated Az Zuhri, Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik said to me, "Have you heard that Ali was one of those who slandered Aisha?" I replied, "No, but two men from your people, named Abu Salama bin Abdurrahman and Abu Bakr bin Abdurrahman bin al-Harith, have informed me that Aisha told them that Ali remained silent about her case." Volume 5, Book 59, number 464, narrated Masruq bin al-Aida, Ruman, the mother of Aisha, said that while Aisha and she were sitting, an Ansari woman came and said, "May Allah harm such and such a person." Ruman said to her, "What is the matter?" She replied, "My son was amongst those who talked of the story, of the slander." Ruman said, "What is that?" She said, "So and so," and narrated the whole story. On that Aisha said, "Did Allah's Apostle hear about that?" She replies, "Yes." Aisha further said, "And Abu Bakr too?" She replied, "Yes." On that, Aisha fell down fainting, and when she came to her senses, she had got fever with rigors. I put her clothes over her and covered her. The Prophet came and asked, "What is wrong with this lady?" Ruman replied, "O Allah's Apostle, she, Aisha, has got temperature with rigors." He said, "Perhaps it is because of the story that has been talked about." She said, "Yes." Aisha sat up and said, "By Allah, if I took an oath that I am innocent, you would not believe me, and if I said that I am not innocent, you would not excuse me. My and your example is like that of Jacob and his sons, as Jacob said, 'It is Allah alone whose help can be sought against that you assert.'" Ruman said, "The Prophet then went out saying nothing. Then Allah declared her innocence." On that, Aisha said to the Prophet, "I thank Allah only, thank neither anybody else nor you." Volume 5, Book 59, number 465, narrated Ibn Abi Malaika, Aisha used to recite this verse, Ida talikunahu by al-sinaticum, 24. 15, as you tell lie with your tongues, and used to say, al-walak, means, telling of a lie. She knew this verse more than anybody else as it was revealed about her. Volume 5, Book 59, number 466, narrated Hisham's father, I started abusing Hassan in front of Aisha. She said, "Do not abuse him as he used to defend Allah's Apostle against the infidels." Aisha added, "Once Hassan took the permission from the Prophet to say poetic verses against the infidels." On that the Prophet said, "How will you exclude my forefathers from that?" Hassan replied, "I will take you out of them as one takes a hair out of the dough." Hisham's father added, "I abused Hassan as he was one of those who spoke against Aisha." Volume 5, Book 59, number 467, narrated Masruq, we went to Aisha while Hassan bin Thabit was with her reciting poetry to her from some of his poetic verses, saying, "A chaste wise lady about whom nobody can have suspicion. She gets up with an empty stomach because she never eats the flesh of indiscreet ladies." Aisha said to him, but you are not like that. I said to her, why do you grant him admittance? Though Allah said, and as for him among them, who had the greater share therein, his will be a severe torment. 24:11. On that, Aisha said, and what punishment is more than blinding? She added, Hassan used to defend or say poetry on behalf of Allah's Apostle, against the infidels. Volume 5, Book 59, number 468, narrated Sa'id bin Khalid, we went out with Allah's Apostle in the year of Al-Hudaybiyah. One night it rained and Allah's Apostle led us in the Fajr prayer and, after finishing it, turned to us and said, do you know what your Lord has said? We replied, Allah and His Apostle know it better. He said, Allah said, some of my slaves got up believing in me, and some of them disbelieving in me. The one who said, we have been given rain through Allah's mercy and Allah's blessing and Allah's bounty, then he is a believer in me, and is a disbeliever in the star. And whoever said, we have been given rain because of such and such star, then he is a believer in the star, and is a disbeliever in me. Volume 5, Book 59, number 469, narrated Anas, Allah's Apostle performed 4 Umrahs, all in the month of Dhul-Qa'dah, except the one which he performed with his Hajj, i.e. in Dhul-Hijjah. He performed 1 Umrah from Al-Hudaybiyah in Dhul-Qa'dah, another Umrah in the following year in Dhul-Qa'dah, a third from Al-Jirana where he distributed the war booty of Hunayn, in Dhul-Qa'dah, and the 4th Umrah he performed was with his Hajj. Volume 5, Book 59, number 470, narrated Abu Qatada, we set out with the Prophet in the year of Al-Hudaybiyah, and all his companions assumed the state of Ihram, but I did not. Volume 5, Book 59, number 471, narrated Al-Bara, do you, people, consider the conquest of Mecca, the victory, referred to in the Quran 48:1. Was the conquest of Mecca a victory? We really consider that the actual victory was the Ridwan pledge of allegiance which we gave on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah, to the Prophet. On the day of Al-Hudaybiyah we were 1,400 men along with the Prophet. Al-Hudaybiyah was a well, the water of which we used up leaving not a single drop of water in it. When the Prophet was informed of that, he came and sat on its edge. Then he asked for a utensil of water, performed ablution from it, rinsed his mouth, invoked Allah, and poured the remaining water into the well. We stayed there for a while and then the well brought forth what we required of water for ourselves and our riding animals. Volume 5, Book 59, number 472, narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, that they were in the company of Allah's Apostle on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah and their number was 1,400 or more. They camped at a well and drew its water till it was dried. When they informed Allah's Apostle of that, he came and sat over its edge and said, bring me a bucket of its water. When it was brought, he spat and invoked Allah, and said, leave it for a while. Then they quenched their thirst and watered their riding animals, from that well, till they departed. Volume 5, Book 59, number 473, narrated Salim, Jabir said, on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah, the people felt thirsty and Allah's Apostle had a utensil containing water. He performed ablution from it and then the people came towards him. Allah's Apostle said, what is wrong with you? The people said, O Allah's Apostle, we haven't got any water to perform ablution with or to drink, except what you have in your utensil. So the Prophet put his hand in the utensil and the water started spouting out between his fingers like springs. So we drank and performed ablution. I said to Jabir, what was your number on that day? He replied, even if we had been 100,000, that water would have been sufficient for us. Anyhow, we were 1,500. Volume 5, Book 59, number 474, narrated Qatada, I said to Sa'id bin al-Musayyab, I have been informed that Jabir bin Abdullah said that the number of Al-Hudaybiyah Muslim warriors was 1,400. Sa'id said to me, Jabir narrated to me that they were 1,500 who gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah. Volume 5, Book 59, number 475, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah, Allah's Apostle said to us, you are the best people on the earth. We were 1,400 then. If I could see now, I would have shown you the place of the tree, beneath which the pledge of allegiance was given by us. Salim said, our number was 1,400. Abdullah bin Abi Awfa said, the people, who gave the pledge of allegiance, under the tree numbered 1,300 and the number of Bani Aslam was 1/8 of the emigrants. Volume 5, Book 59, number 476, narrated Mirdas al-Islami, who was among those who had given the pledge of allegiance. Under the tree, pious people will die in succession, and there will remain the dregs of society who will be like the useless residues of dates and barley, and Allah will pay no attention to them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 477, narrated Marwan and Al-Miswar bin Makrama. The Prophet went out in the company of 1,300 to 1,500 of his companions in the year of Al-Hudaybiyah, and when they reached Dhul-Hulaifa, he garlanded and marked his hadi and assumed the state of Ihram. Volume 5, Book 59, number 478, narrated Ka'b bin Ujra, that Allah's apostle saw him with the lice falling from his head on his face. Allah's apostle said, "Are your lice troubling you?" Ka'b said, "Yes." Allah's apostle thus ordered him to shave his head while he was at Al-Hudaybiyah. Up to then there was no indication that all of them would finish their state of Ihram, and they hoped that they would enter Mecca. Then the order of Al-Fidyah was revealed, so Allah's apostle ordered Ka'b to feed 6 poor persons with 1 farak of food, or slaughter a sheep, or fast for 3 days. Volume 5, Book 59, number 479, narrated Aslam. Once I went with Umar bin al-Khattab to the market. A young woman followed Umar and said, "O chief of the believers, my husband has died, leaving little children. By Allah, they have not even a sheep's trotter to cook, they have no farms or animals. I am afraid that they may die because of hunger, and I am the daughter of Kufaf bin Imar al-Ghafari, and my father witnessed the pledge of allegiance of Al-Hudaybiyah with the Prophet." Umar stopped and did not proceed, and said, "I welcome my near relative." Then he went towards a strong camel which was tied in the house, and carried onto it 2 sacks he had loaded with food grains, and put between them money and clothes, and gave her its rope to hold, and said, "Lead it, and this provision will not finish till Allah gives you a good supply." A man said, "O chief of the believers, you have given her too much." Umar said disapprovingly, "May your mother be bereaved of you. By Allah, I have seen her father and brother besieging a fort for a long time and conquering it, and then we were discussing what their shares they would have from that war booty." Volume 5, Book 59, number 480, narrated Said bin al-Musayyab, that his father said, "I saw the tree of the Ridwan pledge of allegiance, and when I returned to it later, I was not able to recognize it." The sub-narrator Marmijadi said, Al-Musayyab said, "Then, forgot it, i.e., the tree." Volume 5, Book 59, number 481, narrated Tariq bin Abdurrahman, "When I set out for Hajj, I passed by some people offering a prayer. I asked, 'What is this mosque?' They said, 'This is the tree where Allah's apostle took the Ridwan pledge of allegiance.' Then I went to Sa'idi bin Musayyab and informed him about it. Said, 'My father said that he was amongst those who had given the pledge of allegiance to Allah's apostle beneath the tree. He, i.e. my father, said, when we set out the following year, we forgot the tree and were unable to recognize it.' Then said, perhaps ironically, the companions of the Prophet could not recognize it, nevertheless, you do recognize it, therefore you have a better knowledge." Volume 5, Book 59, number 482, narrated Said bin al-Musayyab, that his father was amongst those who had given the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet beneath the tree, and the next year when they went towards the tree, they were not able to recognize it. Volume 5, Book 59, number 483, narrated Tariq, the tree where the Ridwan pledge of allegiance was taken by the Prophet, was mentioned before Said bin al-Musayyab. On that he smiled and said, "My father informed me about it, and he had witnessed it, i.e. the pledge." Volume 5, Book 59, number 484, narrated Abdullah bin Abi Awfa, who was one of those who had given the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet beneath the tree. When the people brought sadaqah, i.e. rakat, to the Prophet, he used to say, "O Allah, bless them with your mercy." Once my father came with his sadaqah to him, whereupon he, i.e. the Prophet, said, "O Allah, bless the family of Abu Awfa." Volume 5, Book 59, number 485, narrated Abbas bin Tamim, when it was the day of the battle of Al-Hara, the people were giving pledge of allegiance to Abdullah bin Hanzala. Ibn Zayd said, "For what are the people giving pledge of allegiance to Abdullah bin Hanzala?" It was said to him, "For death." Ibn Zayd said, "I will never give the pledge of allegiance for that to anybody else after Allah's apostle." Ibn Zayd was one of those who had witnessed the day of Al-Hudaybiyah with the Prophet. Volume 5, Book 59, number 486, narrated Iyas bin Salama bin al-Aqwa, my father who was amongst those who had given the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet beneath the tree, said to me, we used to offer the Jumu'ah prayer with the Prophet and then depart at a time when the walls had no shade for us to take shelter in. Volume 5, Book 59, number 487, narrated Yazid bin Abi Ubaid, I said to Salama bin al-Aqwa, for what did you give the pledge of allegiance to Allah's apostle on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah? He replied, for death, in the cause of Islam. Volume 5, Book 59, number 488, narrated Al-Musayyab, I met Al-Bara bin Azib and said to him, may you live prosperously. You enjoyed the company of the Prophet and gave him the pledge of allegiance, of Al-Hudaybiyah, under the tree. On that, Al-Bara said, O my nephew, you do not know what we have done after him, i.e. his death. Volume 5, Book 59, number 489, narrated Abu Kilaba, that Thabit bin ad-Dahak had informed him that he was one of those who had given the pledge of allegiance, of Al-Hudaybiyah, beneath the tree. Volume 5, Book 59, number 490, narrated Anas bin Malik, regarding Allah's statement, verily, we have granted you, O Muhammad, manifest victory. 48. 1. It refers to the Al-Hudaybiyah pledge. And the companions of the Prophet said, to the Prophet, congratulations and happiness for you, but what reward shall we get? So Allah revealed that He may admit the believing men and women to gardens beneath which rivers flow. 48. 5. Volume 5, Book 59, number 491, narrated Zahir al-Islami, who was one of those who had witnessed the pledge of allegiance beneath the tree, while I was making fire beneath the cooking pots containing donkey's meat. The announcer of Allah's apostle announced, Allah's apostle forbids you to eat donkey's meat. The same narration was told by Majzar from a man called Uban bin Aus who was one of those who had witnessed the pledge of allegiance beneath the tree, and who had some trouble in his knee so that while doing prostrations, he used to put a pillow underneath his knee. Volume 5, Book 59, number 492, narrated Suwaid bin Numan, who was one of those who witnessed the pledge of allegiance beneath the tree. Allah's apostle and his companions were given sawik and they chewed it. Volume 5, Book 59, number 493, narrated Abu Jamra, I asked Aid bin Amr, who was one of the companions of the Prophet, one of those who gave the allegiance to the Prophet the tree, can the witr prayer be repeated in one night? He said, if you have offered it in the first part of the night, you should not repeat it in the last part of the night. See Fatih al-Bari page 458 vol 8. Volume 5, Book 59, number 494, narrated Zaid bin Aslam, my father said, Allah's apostle was proceeding at night on one of his journeys and Umar bin al-Khattab was going along with him. Umar bin al-Khattab asked him about something, but Allah's apostle did not answer him. Umar asked him again, but he did not answer him. He asked him again, for the third time, but he did not answer him. On that Umar bin al-Khattab addressed himself saying, may your mother be bereaved of you, O Umar, for you have asked Allah's apostle thrice, yet he has not answered you. Umar said, then I made my camel run fast and took it in front of the other Muslims, and I was afraid that something might be revealed in my connection. I had hardly waited for a moment when I heard somebody calling me. I said, I was afraid that something might have been revealed about me. Then I came to Allah's apostle and greeted him. He, i.e. the Prophet, said, tonight there has been revealed to me a surah which is dearer to me than all the world, on which the sun rises, and then he recited, verily, we have granted you, O Muhammad, a manifest victory. 48, 1, Volume 5, Book 59, number 495, narrated Al-Miswar bin Makrama and Marwan bin al-Hakam. One of them said more than his friend the Prophet set out in the company of more than 1,000 of his companions in the year of Al-Hudaybiyah, and when he reached Dhul Hulaifa, he garlanded his hadi, i.e. sacrificing animal, assumed the state of Iram for Umrah from that place and sent a spy of his from Khuzai tribe. The Prophet proceeded until he reached a village called Gadir al-Ashtat. There his spy came and said, the Quraysh, infidels, have collected a great number of people against you, and they have collected against you the Ethiopians, and they will fight with you, and will stop you from entering the Kaaba and prevent you. The Prophet said, O people, give me your opinion. Do you recommend that I should destroy the families and offspring of those who want to stop us from the Kaaba? If they should come to us for peace, then Allah will destroy a spy from the pagans, or otherwise we will leave them in a miserable state. On that Abu Bakr said, O Allah Apostle, you have come with the intention of visiting this house, i.e. Kaaba, and you do not want to kill or fight anybody. So proceed to it, and whoever should stop us from it, we will fight him. On that the Prophet said, proceed on, in the name of Allah. Volume 5, Book 59, number 496, narrated Urwa bin Azad Zubair, that he heard Marwan bin al-Hakam and al-Miswar bin Makrama relating one of the events that happened to Allah's Apostle in the Umrah of al-Hudaybiyah. They said, when Allah's Apostle concluded the truce with Suhail bin Amr on the day of al-Hudaybiyah, one of the conditions which Suhail bin Amr stipulated, was his saying, to the Prophet, if anyone from us, i.e. infidels, ever comes to you, though he has embraced your religion, you should return him to us, and should not interfere between us and him. Suhail refused to conclude the truce with Allah's Apostle except on this condition. The believers disliked this condition and got disgusted with it and argued about it. But when Suhail refused to conclude the truce with Allah's Apostle except on that condition, Allah's Apostle concluded it. Accordingly, Allah's Apostle then returned Abu Jandal bin Suhail to his father, Suhail bin Amr, and returned every man coming to him from them during that period even if he was a Muslim. The believing women emigrants came to Medina, and Kulthum, the daughter of Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, was one of those who came to Allah's Apostle, and she was an adult at that time. Her relatives came, asking Allah's Apostle to return her to them, and in this connection, Allah revealed the verses dealing with the believing women. Aisha said, Allah's Apostle used to test all the believing women who migrated to him, with the following verse, O Prophet, when the believing women come to you, to give the pledge of allegiance to you. 60:12, Urwa's uncle said, we were informed when Allah ordered his Apostle to return to the pagans what they had given to their wives who lately migrated to Medina, and we were informed that Abu Bakr relating the whole narration. Volume 5, Book 59, number 497, narrated Nafi, Abdullah bin Umar set out for Umrah during the period of afflictions, and he said, if I should be stopped from visiting the Kaaba, I will do what we did when we were with Allah's Apostle. He assumed Ihram for Umrah in the year of Al-Hudaybiyah. Volume 5, Book 59, number 498, narrated Nafi, Ibn Umar assumed Ihram and said, if something should intervene between me and the Kaaba, then I will do what the Prophet did when the Quraysh infidels intervened between him and the Kaaba. Then Ibn Umar recited, you have indeed in Allah's Apostle a good example to follow. 33:21, Volume 5, Book 59, number 499, narrated Nafi, one of Abdullah's sons said to Abdullah bin Umar, I wish you would stay this year, and not perform Hajj, as I am afraid that you will not be able to reach the Kaaba. On that he, i.e. Abdullah bin Umar, said, we went out with the Prophet for Umrah, and when the Quraysh infidel intervened between us and the Kaaba, the Prophet slaughtered his hadi and shaved his head, and his companions cut short their hair. Then Abdullah bin Umar said, I make you witness that I have intended to perform Umrah, and if I am allowed to reach the Kaaba, I will perform the Tawaf, and if something, i.e. obstacles, intervene between me and the Kaaba, then I will do what Allah's Apostle did. Then after going for a while, he said, I consider the ceremonies of both Umrah and Hajj as one and the same, so I would like you to witness that I have intended to perform Hajj along with my Umrah. So he performed only one Tawaf and one Sa'i, between Safa and Marwa, and finished the Ihram of both Umrah and Hajj. Volume 5, Book 59, number 500, narrated Nafi, the people used to say that Ibn Umar had embraced Islam before Umar. This is not true. What happened is that Umar sent Abdullah to bring his horse from an Ansari man so as to fight on it. At that time the people were giving the pledge of allegiance to Allah's Apostle near the tree, and Umar was not aware of that. So Abdullah bin Umar gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet, and went to take the horse and brought it to Umar. While Umar was putting on the armor to get ready for fighting, Abdullah informed him that the people were giving the pledge of allegiance to Allah's Apostle beneath the tree. So Umar set out and Abdullah accompanied him till he gave the pledge of allegiance to Allah's Apostle, and it was this event that made people say that Ibn Umar had embraced Islam before Umar. Abdullah bin Umar added, the people were along with the Prophet on the day of Al-Hudaybiyah spreading in the shade of the trees. Suddenly the people surrounded the Prophet and started looking at him. Umar said, O Abdullah, Go and see why the people are encircling Allah's apostle and looking at him. Abdullah bin Umar then saw the people giving the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet. So he also gave the pledge of allegiance and returned to Umar, who went out in his turn and gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet. Volume 5, Book 59, number 501, narrated Abdullah bin Abi Awfa. We were in the company of the Prophet when he performed the Umrah. He performed the Tawaf and we did the same. He offered the prayer and we also offered the prayer with him. Then he performed the sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and we were guarding him against the people of Mecca so that nobody should harm him. Volume 5, Book 59, number 502, narrated Abu Wa'il. When Sa'al bin Hunayf returned from the Battle of Siffin, we went to ask him as to why he had come back. He replied, "You should not consider me a coward, but blame your opinions. I saw myself on the day of Abu Jandal, inclined to fight, and if I had the power of refusing the order of Allah's apostle, then I would have refused it, and fought the infidels bravely. Allah and his apostle know what is convenient better. Whenever we put our swords on our shoulders for any matter that terrified us, our swords led us to an easy agreeable solution before the present situation of disagreement and dispute between the Muslims. When we mend the breach in one side, it opened in another, and we do not know what to do about it." Volume 5, Book 59, number 503, narrated Ka'b bin Ujra. The Prophet came to me at the time of Al-Hudaybiyah pledge while lice were falling on my face. He said, "The lice of your head troubling you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Shave your head and fast for 3 days, or feed 6 poor persons, or slaughter a sheep as sacrifice." The subnarrator, Ayub, said, "I do not know with which of these 3 options he started." Volume 5, Book 59, number 504, narrated Ka'b bin Ujra. We were in the company of Allah's apostle at Al-Hudaybiyah in the state of Iram, and the pagans did not allow us to proceed to the Ka'bah. I had thick hair and lice started falling on my face. The Prophet passed by me and said, "The lice of your head troubling you?" I replied, "Yes." The subnarrator added, "Then the following divine verse was revealed, and if any one of you is ill or has an ailment in his scalp, necessitating shaving, must pay a ransom, feeder, of either fasting or feeding the poor, or offering a sacrifice." 196, Volume 5, Book 59, number 505, narrated Anas. Some people of the tribe of Aql and Urayna arrived at Medina to meet the Prophet and embraced Islam and said, "O Allah's Prophet, we are the owners of milch livestock, i.e. Bedouins, and not farmers, i.e. countrymen." They found the climate of Medina unsuitable for them. So Allah's apostle ordered that they should be provided with some milch camels and a shepherd, and ordered them to go out of Medina and to drink the camel's milk and urine as medicine. So they set out, and when they reached Al-Hara, they reverted to heathenism after embracing Islam, and killed the shepherd of the Prophet and drove away the camels. When this news reached the Prophet, he sent some people in pursuit of them. So they were caught and brought back to the Prophet. The Prophet gave his orders in their concern. So their eyes were branded with pieces of iron, and their hands and legs were cut off, and they were left away in Hara till they died in that state of theirs. See Hadith 234, Volume 1, Volume 5, Book 59, number 506, narrated Abu Raja, the freed slave of Abu Kilaba, who was with Abu Kilaba in Sham. Umar bin Abdul Aziz consulted the people, saying, "What do you think of Qasama?" They said, "It is a right judgment which Allah's apostle and the caliphs before you acted on." Abu Kilaba was behind Umar's bed. Anbasa bin said, "But what about the narration concerning the people of Urayna?" Abu Kilaba said, "Anas bin Malik narrated it to me, and then narrated the whole story." Volume 5, Book 59, number 507, narrated Salama bin al-Aqwa. Once I went, from Medina, towards Al-Ghaba, before the first adhan of the Fajr prayer. The she-camels of Allah's apostle used to graze at a place called Daikarad. A slave of Abdurrahman bin Auf met me on the way, and said, the she-camels of Allah's apostle had been taken away by force. I asked, who had taken them? He replied, the people of Ghatafan. I made 3 loud cries to the people of Medina, saying, O Sabaha! I made the people between the 2 mountains of Medina hear me. Then I rushed onward and caught up with the robbers while they were watering the camels. I started throwing arrows at them as I was a good archer, and I was saying, I am the son of Al-Aqwa, and today will perish the wicked people. I kept on saying like that till I restored the she-camels of the Prophet. I also snatched 30 burda, i.e. garments, from them. Then the Prophet and the other people came there, and I said, O Allah's Prophet, I have stopped the people of Ghatafan from taking water and they are thirsty now. So send some people after them now. On that the Prophet said, O the son of Al-Aqwa, you have overpowered them, so forgive them. Then we all came back and Allah's Apostle seated me behind him on his she-camel till we entered Medina. Volume 5, Book 59, number 508, narrated Suwayd bin Numan, I went out in the company of the Prophet in the year of Khaybar, and when we reached As-Saba, which is the lower part of Khaybar, the Prophet offered the Ars prayer and then asked the people to collect the journey food. Nothing was brought but sawik which the Prophet ordered to be moistened with water, and then he ate it and we also ate it. Then he got up to offer the Maghrib prayer. He washed his mouth, and we too washed our mouths, and then he offered the prayer without repeating his ablution. Volume 5, Book 59, number 509, narrated Salama bin Al-Aqwa, we went out to Khaybar in the company of the Prophet. While we were proceeding at night, a man from the group said to Amir, O Amir, won't you let us hear your poetry? Amir was a poet, so he got down and started reciting for the people poetry that kept pace with the camel's footsteps, saying, O Allah, without you we would not have been guided on the right path, neither would we have given in charity, nor would we have prayed. So please forgive us what we have committed, i.e. our defects. Let all of us be sacrificed for your cause and send sakina, i.e. calmness, upon us to make our feet firm when we meet our enemy, and if they will call us towards an unjust thing, we will refuse. The infidels have made a hue and cry to ask others' help against us. The Prophet on that asked, who is that camel driver reciting poetry? The people said, he is Amir bin Al-Aqwa. Then the Prophet said, may Allah bestow his mercy on him. A man amongst the people said, O Allah's Prophet, has martyrdom been granted to him? Would that you let us enjoy his company longer. Then we reached and besieged Khaybar till we were afflicted with severe hunger. Then Allah helped the Muslims conquer it, i.e. Khaybar. In the evening of the day of the conquest of the city, the Muslims made huge fires. The Prophet said, what are these fires? For cooking what, you making the fire? The people replied, for cooking meat. He asked, what kind of meat? They, i.e. people, said, the meat of donkeys. The Prophet said, throw away the meat and break the pots. Some man said, O Allah's Apostle, shall we throw away the meat and wash the pots instead? He said, yes, you can do that too. So when the army files were arranged in rows for the clash, Amir's sword was short and he aimed at the leg of a Jew to strike it, but the sharp blade of the sword returned to him and injured his own knee, and that caused him to die. When they returned from the battle, Allah's Apostle saw me in a sad mood. He took my hand and said, what is bothering you? I replied, let my father and mother be sacrificed for you. The people say that the deeds of Amir are lost. The Prophet said, whoever says so is mistaken, for Amir has got a double reward. The Prophet raised 2 fingers and added, he, i.e. Amir, was a persevering struggler in the cause of Allah, and there are few Arabs who achieved the like of good deeds Amir had done. Volume 5, Book 59, number 510, narrated Anas, Allah's Apostle reached Khaybar at night, and it was his habit that, whenever he reached the enemy at night, he will not attack them till it was morning. When it was morning, the Jews came out with their spades and baskets, and when they saw him, i.e. the Prophet, they said, Muhammad. By Allah, Muhammad and his army. The Prophet said, Khaybar is destroyed, for whenever we approach a hostile nation to fight, then evil will be the morning for those who have been warned. Narrated Anas bin Malik, we reached Khaybar early in the morning, and the inhabitants of Khaybar came out carrying their spades, and when they saw the Prophet they said, Muhammad. By Allah, Muhammad and his army. The Prophet said, Allahu Akbar. Khaybar is destroyed, for whenever we approach a hostile nation to fight, then evil will be the morning for those who have been warned. We then got the meat of donkeys, and intended to eat it, but an announcement was made by the announcer of the Prophet, Allah and his apostle forbid you to eat the meat of donkeys as it is an impure thing. Volume 5, Book 59, number 511, narrated Anas bin Malik, someone came to Allah's apostles and said, the donkeys have been eaten by the Muslims. The Prophet kept quiet. Then the man came again and said, the donkeys have been eaten. The Prophet kept quiet. The man came to him the third time and said, the donkeys have been consumed. On that the Prophet ordered an announcer to announce to the people, Allah and his apostle forbid you to eat the meat of donkeys. Then the cooking pots were upset while the meat was still boiling in them. Volume 5, Book 59, number 512, narrated Anas, the Prophet offered the Fajr prayer near Kaaba when it was still dark and then said, Allahu Akbar. Kaaba is destroyed, for whenever we approach a hostile nation to fight, then evil will be the morning for those who have been warned. Then the inhabitants of Kaaba came out running on the roads. The Prophet had their warriors killed, their offspring and women taken as captives. Safiya was amongst the captives. She first came in the share of Deha Alkali, but later on she belonged to the Prophet. The Prophet made her manumission as her ma. Volume 5, Book 59, number 513, narrated Abdul Aziz bin Suhaib, Anas bin Malik said, the Prophet took Safiya as a captive. He manumitted her and married her. Thabit asked Anas, what did he give her as ma, i.e. marriage gift? Anas replied, her ma was herself, for he manumitted her. Volume 5, Book 59, number 514, narrated Sa'al bin Sa'd as-Sa'idi, Allah's apostle, and his army, encountered the pagans and the two armies, fought and then Allah's apostle returned to his army camps and the others, i.e. the enemy, returned to their army camps. Amongst the companions of the Prophet there was a man who could not help pursuing any single isolated pagan to strike him with his sword. Somebody said, none has benefited the Muslims today more than so-and-so. On that Allah's apostle said, he is from the people of the hellfire certainly. A man amongst the people, i.e. Muslims, said, I will accompany him, to know the fact. So he went along with him, and whenever he stopped with him, and whenever he hastened with him. The brave man then got wounded severely, and seeking to die at once, he planted his sword into the ground and put its point against his chest in between his breasts, and then threw himself on it and committed suicide. On that the person, who was accompanying the deceased all the time, came to Allah's apostle and said, I testify that you are the apostle of Allah. The Prophet said, why is that, what makes you say so? He said, it is concerning the man whom you have already mentioned as one of the dwellers of the hellfire. The people were surprised by your statement, and I said to them, I will try to find out the truth about him for you. So I went out after him and he was then inflicted with a severe wound and because of that, he hurried to bring death upon himself by planting the handle of his sword into the ground and directing its tip towards his chest between his breasts, and then he threw himself over it and committed suicide. Allah's apostle then said, a man may do what seem to the people as the deeds of the dwellers of paradise, but he is from the dwellers of the hellfire, and another may do what seem to the people as the deeds of the dwellers of the hellfire, but he is from the dwellers of paradise. Volume 5, Book 59, number 515, narrated Abu Hurairah, we witnessed the Battle of Khaybar. Allah's apostle said about one of those who were with him and who claimed to be a Muslim. This man is from the dwellers of the hellfire. When the battle started, that fellow fought so violently and bravely that he received plenty of wounds. Some of the people were about to doubt the Prophet's statement, but the man, feeling the pain of his wounds, put his hand into his quiver and took out of it some arrows with which he slaughtered himself, i.e. committed suicide. Then some men amongst the Muslims came hurriedly and said, O Allah's apostle! Allah has made your statement true, so-and-so has committed suicide. The Prophet said, O so-and-so! Get up and make an announcement that none but a believer will enter paradise and that Allah may support the religion with an unchaste, evil, wicked man. Volume 5, Book 59, number 516, narrated Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, when Allah's apostle fought the Battle of Khaybar, or when Allah's apostle went towards it, whenever the people passed over a high place overlooking a valley, they raised their voices saying, Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! None has the right to be worshipped except Allah. On that Allah's apostle said to them, lower your voices, for you are not calling a deaf or an absent one, but you are calling a hearer who is near and is with you. I was behind the riding animal of Allah's apostle, and he heard me saying, There is neither might nor power but with Allah. On that he said to me, O Abdullah bin Qais. I said, Labbaik. O Allah's apostle. He said, Shall I tell you a sentence which is one of the treasures of paradise? I said, Yes, O Allah's apostle. Let my father and mother be sacrificed for your sake. He said, It is, there is neither might nor power but with Allah. Volume 5, Book 59, number 517, narrated Yazid bin Abi Ubaid, I saw the trace of a wound in Saloma's leg. I said to him, O Abu Muslim, what is this wound? He said, This was inflicted on me on the day of Khaybar, and the people said, Saloma has been wounded. Then I went to the Prophet, and he puffed his saliva in it, i.e. the wound, thrice, and since then I have not had any pain in it till this hour.